This program features live and safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Jumbo, hello, and a very good morning to all of you, and welcome to the Masai Mara Game Reserve of Kenya. We've got that beautiful view because we have a great sunshine we have, and as usual, my name is David, and on camera with me this morning is Bungay. Bungay, how are you doing, sir? Ted, that you have joined us for our morning drive. Now, we have this great view we want to show you, which is a very typical habitat of the Masai Mara game, and I'm talking about the savannah. And remember, we are coming to you live. Should you have any questions or comments, please send them through, and you can tweet using hashtag WildEarth. My plans this Sunday morning is to go close Mara River, and after that I'll try and chance and see if I could be lucky to see a crossing or anything similar to that. Look at that view. The river is not very far from where I am, and from a distance where you see those big trees, we had seen some lions that were feeding on a buffalo, and I also want to go there and investigate how much of that buffalo is left. Hello and a very good morning. Welcome to Masai Mara. I'm already stationed at the river.
Yes, my name is Isaac, and on camera I have Big James. Already we are here set to show you what's going to happen at the river. Remember to talk to us on CGTN Wild or hashtag WildEarth. Questions and comments are very, very welcome. It's another exciting, beautiful morning. Here we have Toppies and Zebra ready to want to cross. We had a few touch the water, then went back. I must say we are very fortunate to have arrived here before they crossed. Although now that we're here, we don't know how much longer it will take for them to cross. But the good thing is I am here. Stay there. Please remember this is a live this is live coming to you from the Masai Mara. This is not recorded, so please sit back and enjoy. Already, you can tell that didn't cross yesterday. We did have a very big crossing yesterday. These guys didn't cross. I assume they waited until this morning. There is a few more Toppies, unlikely, and to go, they go. So I'm hoping one is going to leap in. The problem is at the water, I don't know if you can see it, there is a crocodile facing upstairs. And I think, that one, he has eaten enough. Yes, he has eaten enough and he doesn't care. It's like, he's saying, until I'm hungry, that's when you're going to cross, so I can, get another one of you. But if one decides to go, usually they don't care about, hey, what's going to happen here. Very cautious Toppy, as usual, but once it goes, everybody will go. When it happens, I don't know. Okay, spooked a little bit. Remember, this is one of the most famous crossings. It is a crossing that they have used over the years, using it. We didn't see crossings in the last almost 10 days, but since yesterday and the day is coming, we will be able to share one or two crossings because there is a good number of wildebeest across the other side. Apart from that is is that, from the southern side, from the Serengeti, news are those ones that had already started going back because we've had lots of rain up here. They're starting to come back. So that is the recent update that we've received. Yesterday, a very big number of the wildebeest that had crossed to northern Serengeti has, crossed back to the Mara, to the Triangle, and they're headed northwest towards, where we are in camp. When I say that, is where our camp is, and it looks like it's going to be exciting coming days for all of us. Already you can tell people have arrived, all in anticipation of seeing our crossing today. What a beautiful morning. The light is just amazing. Yeah, the smell is superb, very, very fresh. Fills your lung with lots of, fresh air. The sun is just perfect. I cannot ask for anything more. Yeah, it's a wonderful morning, I must say. Remember to, talk to me, talk to us. Hashtag CGTN Wild. Emily, good morning. I don't know what time it is where you are. You ask, how often do crocodiles hunt? Very, very good question. They hunt when they need to eat. And that means, almost every time there is a chance, they will go for it. I have seen in my experience over here in this river where they kill and not eat. So they will kill for just fun, very much like their land, cousins, the lions. It's another predator. They'll just kill for fun. Crocodiles can hunt every day and sometimes just for fun. Yesterday I saw a very interesting behavior where they caught a zebra and then continue to play with it, biting it, diving it, with it down, rolling around, but not breaking or eating anything. So, it's very interesting to just sit here by the river. There's never a dull moment because there's always something to learn, even for us. Here, in the bush, this is a very exciting moment of the year, and it's always important for you to share or show you and learn about the beautiful migration.
From the southern plains of the Serengeti, over 1 million grazers move northwest through the western corridor, gathering along the banks of the Grumeti River. Once the chaos of the rut comes to an end, the herds gallop north once again. In time, more than 2 million animals amount to feast on the abundance the Mara has to offer. But the reward of the red oat grass does not come easy. The zebra vanguard is the first on the banks, taking the plunge into the treacherous Mara River in order to reach the untouched long grass plains on the other side. Not only must they face the turbulent waters, but also the crocodiles, gliding through the rapids in anticipation. Then comes the body of the migration, the thundering herds of the white-bearded wildebeest, with their bleats echoing through the landscape while in search for greener pastures. Hunger. So too are the lions of the Mara, who patrol the banks of the river. The risks are known, but the herds are determined. All must make the leap. Some will fall, but for the survivors, the lush greenery that awaits is bountiful. And then, as is nature's way, it comes the time to cross the river again, continue to follow the life-giving storms and nourishing plains.
Welcome back live to Djuma, everybody, and indeed the circle of life, the Mara. What magnificent landscapes with those crossings of zebra and wildebeest. We found a different species of wildebeest down here. This is called the brindled or blue gnu, and you never find them like this in the Mara, hidden in the thickets. They are, for the most part, open plains specialists. That's what they do. The migration is all about the grass. It's all about the wildebeest moving through the open plains. And these wildebeest have had to adapt to areas here in the Kruger that have become a little bit more densely wooded. And we've got a group of wildebeest here feeding after the rain. And they are together with a small herd of impala as well, just on the left. And the lioness and male lion that were seen yesterday morning were around this area last night. I had their tracks just before, but on chatting with my colleagues on the radio, those lions have gone over to the west. So it's often a case we find when we come to this big open area that we have just outside our camp, where we often find impala and wildebeest hanging out. When we find them on this side, you know that a predator moved on the opposite side, and that is where the tracks of that lion and female lion were. And so it's often a very good indication that predators have been around, how these animals are clumped together, how they've been moving. And they're trying to get in the middle. Oh, somebody snorted. Now, hanging out with these animals can often be quite fruitful, because you'll often have predators trying to hunt them. So if they start behaving erratically or shouting, alarm calling, they've got very good eyesight at spotting predators, and often is a very, very good way of starting the morning to see the behavior of these impala. But the way they're behaving indicates that the lions moved quite some time ago. It's normally 45 minutes to an hour or so. These animals are still jumpy and skittish after being hunted, but it takes about that amount of time for them to sort of get easy again.
Good morning and a very warm welcome to and Beyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. Have a look at this group of giraffe busy feeding in the bushes over there. My name is Damon, and behind the camera we've got Craig. We've got quite an exciting plan for the morning. There was a female cheetah not far from here last night who had killed an impala. We found the carcass just about finished, and we're going to go check through some open areas to see if maybe she's chosen one of those to rest for the night. But like I said, this group of giraffe behind us, those two closest to us, see how they've got their heads buried in the bushes, busy feeding? When we got here, they were busy play fighting. So two young bulls just taking each other's measure, swinging their necks at each other. But it seems now they've had enough of their bout of play fighting, and now it's time to get down to the serious business of feeding. Look at that one there. Quite a chilly morning here, and quite windy here at Beyond Phinda. Lots of grey cloud overhead. Amy, you're asking a very good question. You're asking how you can tell the difference between a male and a female giraffe. Well, Amy, if you can see underneath the belly, then that's the most surefire way to tell. With males, you can see their genitals on the underside of their belly or between their back legs. Obviously, you won't with a female. But then, from a distance, if you can only see their head, you can have a look at the horns, Amy. So with males, because like I said, they use their horns for fighting. Their horns are quite a bit thicker, much more robust, and as they get older, the males will get bald patches, or the tops of their horns or ossicones will become bald. With a female, because they don't use their horns for fighting, they're much thinner, and they have a little tuft of hair on the top of the horn there. So see the one there that we've got on screen now? Have a close look, Amy, at the top of its horns. See those very bald grey patches there where the hair is all fallen out? And see how thick and robust those horns are, and that tells us that this particular giraffe is a male. Lovely to see all of these giraffes all feeding through this little clearing here. And just like Steve was saying with the impala, how they can be very useful to help you to find just come back to that now. Linma, you're asking why these giraffes are so pale. Well, Linma, I think it's partially because most of these giraffes here are males and are quite young. And often with male giraffe, the older they get, the darker they get. But then otherwise, Linmar, it just comes down to genetics. You get giraffes that are super, super pale, and then you get giraffes that are super dark in color. It all just depends on their genetics. I suppose also throughout Africa, it also depends on the different subspecies. There's quite a few different subspecies of giraffe throughout Africa, and they've all got slightly different patterns and colors to their coats. But these, often with very old giraffe bulls, they often take on a very dark color to their coats, and perhaps these younger bulls will also take on that same color once they get older. Impossible to say for now. But as I was saying, like Steve was saying with the impala, how they can be very useful in terms of helping us to locate predators, because they'll alarm call if they see a predator. It's quite similar with these giraffe as well. If a giraffe sees a lion or sees a leopard or even a cheetah, even though a cheetah is not going to be a threat to a big giraffe like this, if they do see a cheetah, they'll often stand and they'll stare in the direction of the cheetah, and you can tell by the fact that their ears are pricked forward and their body is all tense and they're busy staring at that in the direction of where that predator is. And if you follow their gaze, very often you can be rewarded with finding a predator. And sometimes they'll even make a hissing sound if they see a cheetah or a leopard lying down. And then that's normally an even more surefire way to tell that there is some sort of potential danger there. Sometimes giraffe will also stare at each other, and then you end up getting all excited and trying to see what they're looking at, and oh no, it's just another giraffe, or another little animal that's maybe moving around in the grass that's gotten their attention, something like a warthog. But we're going to be paying very close attention to animals like these giraffe as we move off to go and search that clearing. Still pretty early in the morning, and so this cheetah would have no doubt rested. Sassy Cassie, you're asking how often lions hunt giraffe here at Pinda. Sassy Cassie, because there's an abundance of smaller prey, of easier to catch prey, so to speak, things like inyalas and warthogs and wildebeest, it doesn't happen that often that lions here will try and hunt adult giraffe. Giraffe calves and young giraffes, that happens fairly frequently. Just because a giraffe is a very big animal, it's got very long legs and big hooves that could easily injure a lion. And so a lion will normally, if it can help it, it'll try and choose an easier target. But Sassy Cassie, I've seen a couple of carcasses of young giraffes that have been killed by lions. And then I've seen maybe one or two adult giraffes where we thought, not 100% sure, but we thought that perhaps lions had brought them down. All right, like I said, myself and Craig are going to leave these giraffes, and we're going to make our way towards that open clearing, go see if there's any sign of that female cheetah.
For the rolling start, but we have a Thandi and she's making her way out of Djuma into Tortured. My name is Trishana and I've got Glenn. She's almost here. She's just got a scrub hair. Look at that. This has just happened. And we're just going to get a very brief sighting of her because she is about to leave our property. Look at her. So proud. She's even giving you all the look. Head in mouth. Just going to mind our rain roof there. Just going to tuck my head. Isn't she gorgeous? Nothing like a leopard for the morning. She's literally, if she takes a few steps to her right, she's going to be inside Torchwood. And off she goes, so we won't be able to follow her, but we will be able to see her for a little bit. I'm going to move forward. Let's try and get as many views of her as possible, because like I said, this is going to be a short sighting because of her movements. So let's just pop up here. watch her for a little bit. There we go. Now we do have our rain roofs on because it has been quite rainy all night in Djuma. So we have to be extra careful when we're driving around. Look at her, so proud. So she's going into Torchwood, like I explained, which is on our eastern boundary, sorry. And that is generally where she likes to stash her cub. Now, leopardesses will do that, keep their cub in a nice, safe place, and then bring back some food, or they'll hoist a kill and then call their cub to it. And a lot of you are wondering if she's taking it to her cub. Very likely. Otherwise, she would have eaten it right then and there, because a scrub hare is not exactly the type of kill you would hoist. So she is almost definitely taking it to her cub. I don't know if you can hear the paw in the background. Those are some nearby kudu that have gotten sight or smell of Thandi and are alarming. I think I can try for one last view. I think I can try for one last view. She's going further and further in. I'm just gonna push my nose in here ever so slightly. Off in the distance. And that is all, folks. That is Thandi for you. Well, wasn't that special? I thought that was very special. I'm so happy that we managed to get you just in time to catch her going across. There's our leopard for the morning.
Beautiful to see Thandi carrying a scrub hare, taking it to her cub. And talking about eating, we have another predator here that doesn't have a scrub hare but have a bigger prey than a scrub hare. We're talking of an African buffalo. Now we've got one boy, a youngster here, male, feeding on that buffalo, and either the brother or cousin to the left, if you look carefully, who I think is very well fed. Now, these two youngsters come from a breed of lions that we call the River Pride lions. They come from the River Pride, and not sure they have started to form their own coalition, because we've been here 2-3 days and we haven't seen any females, and I am not 100% sure they brought this buffalo down themselves. Though it is possible, we have seen young males, sub-adults like this, doing that. If the prey of the buffalo was maybe very old, or maybe it was sickly, or maybe it had some injury of some sort, but most possibly they would have brought it down themselves. Very majestic walk towards breakfast, like Thandi was walking. I would say they come from the same litter, these two boys here. If you look at them in terms of size, they look very similar to each other. Possibly, they are of the same litter. It's time to share breakfast together. I'm not sure you can hear them tearing the flesh. Either way, look at those bellies. They are so full. And from where we are, I've been trying to smell this carcass. It's still very fresh. We have had some rains here in the Masai Mara every afternoon. Has helped to keep it fresh, because I think this could be the third or the fourth day of this kill. But apparently, it's not smelling at all. See, most of the flesh is gone. See how they're pulling the flash, and you have a break a little bit there. And not very far from where we are, we got some scavengers that are waiting. I'm looking at some vultures and some marabou stock and some, I guess, some tawny eagle. And the pecking order here is until the lions leave this carcass, they are not going to get down. And those are the birds or the scavengers I'm talking about. On the very top there is a marabou stock. And there's the tawny eagle and an African white-backed vulture. I'll spend a few more minutes here and find out if there could be other lions or who exactly could have brought this buffalo down.
I've just stopped at these kudu that still have their attention on Tandi's movements in the east. Now, obviously, I can't see her anymore, but they are still very alert, and they've been alarming just slightly. They have a very deep bark. We call that alarm call a bark. It's very, very deep and very reliable. And it would be wonderful if you could hear the sound of it. You know the sound of an impala alarm call? Very nasal, very much like that. While the kudu is a bit deeper, it goes bah, bah. And for me, they're the most reliable creatures when it comes to locating a predator. You can see they're quite fluffy. And that's obviously because of this overcast weather. They might also be a little bit damp from the night's rain. The rain only stopped at about 5, and then it started again around 6. So it's still quite wet. Now they'll puff themselves up so they can insulate themselves between the hairs that stand up. We call these hairs standing up piloerection, and each one of those hairs have tiny that contracts to pick the hair up and trap air. It's almost like an extra layer of clothing, in the same way that when you're cold, the hairs on your body stand up, attempt to keep you warm. And like you would know, it's not a conscious decision to pick the hairs on your body up, and it isn't one for them either. It's an automatic motor response. You can see they're still quite alert, but Tandi is well and truly into Torchwood now. So I'm going to move on and check out an old hyena den that's not too far away.
Thank you, Trish, and welcome back to the other side of Djuma, everybody, where we've caught up with a herd of elephants. And you can see by the darks of their skin that they've definitely been rained on at some point. She's going to relieve herself slightly while eating. It's a non-stop affair with elephants, everybody. They eat and eat and eat, and their digestive system is constantly working. Here is, I think, actually a black monkey thorn or a baby knob thorn. Black monkey thorn. So, yay, Ellie's everyone's saying. Well, they are definitely abundant at the moment, and we are finding them all over the place. A nice little breeding herd lost in the woodlands here. We discussed drainage lines yesterday. It's sort of the lower areas in the landscape where the soil is a bit deeper and where the water always flows if it does rain. And there's a water table. And these drainage lines are the areas where you find the tallest trees, and often the trees with the leaves at this time of year. And any grass that is growing here is often a little bit longer, and shade-tolerant grasses, which the elephants are now enjoying. Well, it's a very common place to find Ellies at the moment, moving through the riverine systems. Along the banks of rivers is called riparian or riverine, a very specific type of vegetation. It's often tall canopies, and that is because where the river has been flowing, there's a lot of deposited soil and often very deep soils. So trees can grow much taller. When we go up the slopes of these areas, the soil is very shallow. And when the soil's shallow, it's because the parent rock is quite close to the surface and doesn't allow trees to get very tall.
Okay guys, we have the first crossers and 3 have managed to get in, and the crocodile is in hot pursuit. What is going to happen here? The current, oh, another one coming from the left. Oh dear, what is going to... Whoa, yeah, the current is so strong, it is washing the toppies downstream and actually helping them get away from the crocodiles. Well done, Toppy. Well, that is 1 for the toppy and 0 for the crocodile. They managed to cross the 3. The first ones of this morning have succeeded to go across. It is not always the case to see toppies crossing, but we were very fortunate to see them, cross. I'm always, happy when the toppies cross because they're really fast and they really can get away from the crocodiles. That was amazing, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. We are on the banks of Mara River, and in between me and across the other side is the beautiful Mara River. Yes, what wow indeed. This is the beautiful Mara River. The livelihood of all animals in the Mara. These 2 crocodiles have already now parked. They know it's going to happen, and now they are just parked there waiting to swim like a submarine upstream whenever somebody gets into the water. Looks like the toppies have changed tactics. They don't like it here. Where are we gonna cross now? They've gone away from the river. Remember, this always happens. They come, they see a crocodile, they almost miss a near death, and then they get out and decide we're not going to cross. They go away even for half an hour, then all of a sudden somebody decides let's go back. They come and they go. It was very unfortunate that that crocodile went for the toppies soon after they jumped in, because we would have seen more coming. But who am I to predict anything? Here it's nature taking its course. There is nothing that I can do apart from tell you or try and translate what exactly is happening. What is happening here now? They have decided to go to another crossing. There is another crossing about 300 feet upstream from where I am. So let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. Are they gonna go around, or do we have somebody else wanting to come down here? They're always followed by and the wildebeest. It's not always the case, because sometimes you find the zebras are the ones leading, or the wildebeest. It's a matter of who has got the urgency to get across. Beautiful, wonderful. Like I will remind you, it is very beautiful here. The light, the heat, it's not hot. It is very calm. It is very fresh. We had rains yesterday, so it's not dusty. And the light is amazing for those who take pictures. Lucy, thank you very much for your question, but it's rather an interesting question. We say we build bridges for the animals to cross. We already have a few bridges, but I don't think they would use bridges. That would be very awkward, actually, if they used bridges. And I don't think they would prefer to use a bridge. But thank you for your comment. Thank you for your question. I don't think they would use the bridge. And I don't think there's anybody who would want to build a bridge for them, because then you will be interfering with nature's way of these animals, doing their own thing. So thank you for your question, Joe, but it's rather an interesting question. Thank you very much. Okay, just to continue on, looks like they have decided to change tactics. Are they gonna go down? Yeah. There we go, there's one going down. Is it gonna jump in? That is a tricky area. It's a bit rocky. Do we have a leader? Remember, if there's no crocodile, one gets in, everybody will go. Looks like these toppies are very determined. Are they gonna go? There we go. Beautiful. Look at that. Beautiful. Woo! He's a good jump. Yeah. Yeah, they're succeeding. They're going. The current is really, heavy. Look at this. Yeah, the current, they're not going anywhere. It's too strong, the current. Amazing, guys. I hope you're enjoying this. Yeah, let me just leave you to enjoy it for a minute or so. Yeah, they're out of the frame. I don't know what is happening around that corner. I can't see anything. Hopefully they've made it, but I must say it's a very tricky area they chose, because that's a sheer bank back there. We'll be waiting to see what's gonna happen, but it's been very interesting because those were only like 4 before they crossed 3 close to me, and they're not choosing, they're crossing wisely this morning. Okay, let's wait and see. Are we gonna have another crossing? Looks like the topi are really confusing everybody, because did they make it? Oh yes, they made it. 2 of them. Look at how fast they're breathing. Yeah, tension, fear, exhaustion. Yeah. Okay, like I said, the toppies are really confusing everybody. They go this way, they cross, 3 of them, they go that way, cross, come back, run this way. So the zebras look really confused. Okay, do we have more topi crossing? Wait and see. I hope you're enjoying this, guys. I'm loving it. I cannot ask for anything more. Remember your question, your comments as we wait for this crossing to, comments once more are very welcome. Yeah, are we gonna go find another crossing? Looks like somebody told them you have to cross today, and they really want to cross. And it's like, I'm not waiting. Yeah, the zebras now confused, do we follow them? What do we do? What are these guys doing? That's why I'm not a topi, maybe some of them are saying. Pardon me, but I'm here. Please ask me again, Ken. Ken, are you asking? Yeah, the crocodile really full? Yes, they are so full, you cannot believe it. Yesterday afternoon, I saw a good number of them just playing with the carcass. They've been eating so well, and actually, the high tide is an added advantage. Whoa! Look at that. Yeah, our first zebra of this morning. There we go. Beautiful. Enjoy this, guys. Once more, another crossing. How lucky are we? The current there is very strong. You notice how they struggle once they get there. It becomes very difficult, They seem to be moving, but it looks like they're just on a treadmill. Yeah, the zebra is slightly heavier, so it's, swimming much faster than the rest. Do we have more? Looks like not everybody is trusting everybody to go across. Yeah. So when a few cross, the others say, I don't think that's a very good place to cross. They don't. Okay, we have another zebra. Quite a young one. Okay, let's wait and see. Yeah, we have some more. Going in, more and more. Beautiful, look at that. Remember, this is something they do every year. Every time they get to the Mara, they have to cross from one side of the Mara to the other. Some people think, you might think, they're crossing from Kenya to Tanzania. No, this through Kenya up to northern Serengeti. So while in Kenya, they still have to cross from one side to the other. Look at that. That zebra is really a good swimmer. Yeah, yeah. Oh, too rocky. Kate, you asked about something about Topi. Please repeat again. Oh, Kate, you ask, who are better swimmers, Topi or zebra? I would say, I would give it to the zebra. The zebras are much better swimmers. The one thing about Topis is that they're swimmers, good swimmers, but they are not as heavy. So for the zebra, they have an added advantage. The weight and good swimming really helps them, get across quicker. The Topis, the only disadvantage is they're good swimmers, but slightly lighter, and with a current like this, are always, if they're two together, the zebras will always win. That is my take. And my opinion. Let's see, do we have another crossing? Looks like a mare and her foal. Are they gonna go? I hope you're enjoying this, guys. This is live. Talk to us, CGTN Wild, hashtag Wild Earth. Yeah, I hope you're enjoying it like I am. It's a beautiful morning, like I've been saying. The light is just amazing. I'm sure those guys are taking really good pictures. Yeah, this is the time you want to be here to get that beautiful light, get the perfect pictures. Okay, are we gonna get another crossing? It's a very confused crossing this morning, how I would put it, because it started very close to where I am, just across, went then a little bit up, and now it's stopped. And looks like they're congregating, and they might have a leader volunteer to start crossing. Looks like all the Topis have crossed, and we might not have any more Topis, because Topis don't waste time. They just go when they want to go. They don't waste time. Do we have more Topis, James? We have a wildy. And looks like he's lived, he's an aged one, that one, so he must have made many crossings, very experienced, and that's why he's stepping back, waiting. Later on, sometimes you can tell the experienced ones sometimes tend to think twice, stop in the water, and not really get interested. That's my take also. Yeah, beautiful here. Oh, here are the ones that crossed. For some reason, they stayed at the bank. I didn't notice that. And now they've come. Looks like a complete dazzle. A stallion, mares, and foal. So maybe they didn't lose each other while crossing. And that could be very good for the stallion, because it's very difficult to gather new females. There's lots of biting, lots of kicking, and no other males really give in to their females that easily. So he's a lucky guy. He got his all family together, and they crossed together. Okay, here comes the new Kalahari, new entourage. So they want to go down, but let's see. You can see there's the ground hasn't been worn out, so it means the area hasn't been used. And this is what is very interesting and always unpredictable during crossings. You find them going to a place where they it hasn't been used for even years, and they just start using it. I'm gonna take a sip of water. You look at the confusion slightly. Ellie, thank you for your question. You ask how many animals cross each year. It is not documented or properly documented, but maybe I'll talk about the whole, a little bit about the migration and the crossing. Then you might find an answer in between, or that during the crossing we have almost 2.53 million animals. Not all of them make it to the river. I would say maybe 1.5 make it, to the Mara. And during that time, maybe I would say 800,000 will crisscross the river at different points. Not where I am. We have very, very many crossings, but I would estimate about 800,000 cross the Mara River. Okay, while I continue, staying here at the river, I'll keep you updated with this confusion that's just happened, and if they decide to do something, we'll be with you.
Well, I think the most exciting thing about the crossing of the wildebeest or zebras by the river is the games they play of coming to the river. And before they make that very difficult decision whether they're going to cross, we spend so much time just by the riverside or by the banks of the river waiting. And the times you get, like if the other tourists there having the cameras ready and they come so close to the water and then they go back. But I think for me personally, I'm enjoying some wonderful stuff. I still have my buffalo here, and I have got elephants from a distance. But let's have a quick look at the buffalo first, because Karina, this kill I think is 3 days old, and tossed over from the way it was before. Now the two youngsters have left it, but they're very close to that bush that you see on the right. It doesn't smell. Don't be surprised that, Karina, these two male lions would keep it for the next 3 days until it starts getting maggots and very smelly. These lions will still keep eating it as much as they can. I think they got too full, but they're keeping an eye, because earlier we saw one single hyena coming very close, and the scavengers we were showing you before are still there, and both the hyenas and the vultures know that these lions are not far. Now, lions and buffaloes are mortal enemies, and especially here in the Masai Mara, and we are going to learn more about the same.
During the long rains, when the migration herds of wildebeest and zebra are in the Serengeti, the lions of the Mara focus their attention on hunting buffalo. Male lions, even youngsters, can be a powerful asset on the hunt for the large and often temperamental buffalo. Lion attacks are strategic, seeking out the weak, injured, and lonely. With youth comes ambition, and the males prove their worth, charging first. The lions will then surround their target, taking turns to attack its rump, avoiding the dangerous horns. To limit the risk of injury, the lions will attempt to ground the buffalo as quickly as possible. But the added power of a battle-scarred male lion is the final blow. Taking down such a beast is not an easy feat, but necessary nourishment before the bounty of the migration arrives.
Welcome back. Well, It's always very interesting when those two meet, lion and buffalo. It's not one of those predictable, fights, but it can go either way. Well, back to the river, and as quickly as it gets excited, calm down that fast. All of a sudden, there is sudden calm. Looks like heads are being put together, and they're trying to decide what is the next move. You can see very relaxed. Even the wildebeest are bewildered of, or wondering, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna go or just go back? Well, when this happens, it means it won't take long, maybe another 10-15 minutes, and then they are up to it again. Well, I'm here. We'll be back when something happens.
Good morning, everybody. It is a cool, brisk morning here at Tswalu. Good news, all the Shelby ducklings are still alive and well and growing like the Hulk. But we're looking at some springbok at the moment. I don't know if you can see them currently. They're just behind the trees at the moment, I think. But we're in the same area as we were the other day. Where we had that African wildcat looking to hunt. So we were actually wanting to see if we can find him again. We're still hopeful to be able to get him and possibly see another hunt. But for the time being, we're just looking at these beautiful springbok, I think freezing themselves at the moment. But I think very happy to get out and be in the sun for a bit. It's a little difficult to see now with them being behind the brush, but it's typical of these cold mornings where you see the animals having that velvety layer almost around their bodies. When they get goosebumps just like we do, to form that thicker layer around their body to trap the body heat inside for a little longer. As you can see, they're coming a little bit more into the open there now. But yeah, just a beautiful. Yeah, no, we're very happy to be back also, guys, and excited for what the morning is going to have to offer. Also, after spending some time looking for the wildcat, we're gonna head over to the meerkats to see how they're doing. With it being a little cold, we're just gonna wait a little bit longer for it to heat up before they're gonna come out. But we are in contact with our meerkat habituator, Veronique, so she'll let us know as soon as there's some action. If not, we'll head over there in any way and wait for them to wake up, and then we'll be with you. But I believe that you guys are enjoying lots of different beautiful sightings at the moment all over. But yeah, just very happy to be back in with... Safari Seth just had an excellent question. Is the springbok and the Thompson's gazelle the same? And no, they are both part of the ruminant family, so ancestral, I think they come from the same line, but definitely not the same. You don't typically find the springbok all the way up north. So Thompson's gazelle typically a little bit more bulky, more muscular, and find them all the way up in the Masai Mara and the Serengeti, so central and eastern Africa. And then the springbok is typical to almost more arid environments. Back in the day, you'd find them all over southern Africa. They had quite large migrations. We were actually talking about that the other day, of where there's books that I've in the area where I come from, which is called the Springbok Vlakte, so close to the Waterberg mountain range where I grew up. And they speak of springbok migrations there being larger than the ones that we currently have with the blue wildebeest in the Masai Mara and the Serengeti, of about 7.5 million individuals, where towns would close and actually the people within the town at that time would move out of the area just to avoid that migration when they come through, because it would take like 10 days for them to a particular area. But to answer your question, no, not the same. Springbok, a little bit more arid environment, a little smaller because of that. You know, it pays off to be a little smaller to be able to function with less nutrition or, well, food and water for that matter. Also, heating up and cooling down a bit more efficiently, whereas the Thompson's gazelle, you find them more in tropical environments like the Serengeti and the Masai Mara.
We got like a huge congregation of birds here, and not sure exact, but the last few days in the afternoons in the Masai Mara, we have had some rains. And what happens when it rains, we'll get all the worms or all the invertebrates underground will definitely rise up and shine. And when that happens, we get all these birds coming to feed on the same. We've got so many bird species in this one particular area that we call the marsh area. Maybe not the marsh anymore because not much water has been on it and not much vegetation that is very similar to a marsh area. It has been rather dry, but I think the rains are coming back. And once the rains come back, they have brought all these birds that you see here. We got the sacred ibis, that's what you see with the black beaks there. The big ones there are the greater egrets. And also we can hear them feeding or just moving around. The smaller white ones are called the cattle egrets. We also got some herons there, the black-headed heron. And notice how busy all of them are feeding. Now look at the heron there in between. That one just dived on something. Not sure what she caught. But the feeding habit of the herons is very different from the sacred ibis and from the egrets. They are always very patient. They look at their prey. They wait until the prey makes a move and then they pounce. But all the other birds are just disturbing the grass and picking on anything they would get. And we've noticed sometimes they just pick mud and squeeze it and see if there'll be anything to eat. And you can see the heron is quite tall than the other bird species. Oops. Maybe it could have been a frog that came out, or maybe a catfish, and they all got scared. Just had a frog. How beautiful is that? And remember, we are coming to you live. Should you have any questions or comments, please send them through. Hashtag CGTNWild or hashtag WildEarth. Great sound to hear there. Now, definitely all the species are here because of feeding. That's why they're all different species, but they know they have to feed, and especially in the morning before it gets very hot. Terry, if you're asking how far this is from the river, we are about what? We are about 4 kilometers from where the river is. We are about 4 kilometers from where Isaac is. The big trees you see there, Terry, the other side of those trees is where the Mara River is. There are loads of birds here, but most of them are the egrets and the cattle egrets, the small ones. And I think as it warms up later on in the day, they will go follow the big herbivores, because the big herbivores will be moving the grass and disturbing the grass, and that's where they'll be catching some insects for themselves. And I'm sure, talking of the big herbivores, most birds here that you see, they'll be eating invertebrates of any sort, any crustaceans, any worms, the big ones that can catch frogs, they'll eat frogs, they'll also eat mice, they'll eat rats, sometimes they also eat scorpions. Anything that's moving here, millipedes, centipedes, that's what they'll eat. The heron, like that one you see moving to the right there. The other day I saw one that caught a mouse, and as soon as the mouse was dead, it just swallowed it in under 3 seconds, shoo, and just went down. Now, talking of big herbivores, as I was talking earlier, I'm talking about elephants. You'll see that these birds are going to leave the marsh area and go join the big herbivores like elephants or buffaloes, because as they move on in the grass, as they feed, they'll have a lot to eat. And slowly, you're going to see a herd of elephants that is going towards the marsh. And most of the egrets that you have seen here, later on in the day, they are going to spend the better time of the day with elephants like this.
Welcome back to the river. Yeah, I hope you're having a wonderful time. You're enjoying everything that we're sharing. Here at the river, the update is the calm is still persisting. Nothing much has happened. Looks like they are having small meetings, small family meetings here and there. There is very minimal movement. There is a lot of tail wagging, and staring at the river. That is all that is happening. There hasn't been much. Just to remind you, this is part of the whole experience here at the river. Is that Erica? You ask which animal is the most successful at the crossing. Yes, I would say for me it still stands to be the zebra. We rarely see very few, zebra casualties, so it stands as the zebra. It is the successful. One I have seen Thompson's gazelle cross. As little as they are very good, but when there is a gang of crocodiles at the river, none of them really succeed. For the wildebeest, sometimes the current does wash them downstream. The topi, they are not as many, so I won't put them in the competition. So the zebra takes it for me. I'm just talking about the Tommy. There was one very horrible, or I would put it as crossing gone wrong, where about 17 Thompson's gazelle crossed and none of them made it. I saw a few of them being swallowed whole by the crocodiles. I would call it as crossing gone wrong. So the Thompson's gazelle lose it, the zebras take it. On my side, yeah, there is still lots of calm. This is typical of our crossing here. You have to have a lot of patience, a lot of time, and as I always frame it and put it, nature is very unpredictable. If you give it a bit of your time, it can show you a very beautiful side or a hidden secret that it never shares with anybody or everybody. So by giving it time, it can, things can turn here and they can go down any time. So I'm not leaving here, so don't you go away.
Very correct, Isaac. Be patient. That's the rule of the game when you go waiting to see a crossing. And for me, I'm just having a wonderful time here. I'm not patient, but I got elephants, I got birds as we were watching earlier. And this herd of elephants is heading to the very center of the marsh. The green that you see there, that's actually the area that we call the marsh area. And the background, as you see, that's not very far from where we live. Our camp is around that area. And that is the Ololo escarpment. Now, we have not been seeing elephants coming to this marsh area because it has been very dry, which is quite unusual. But under normal circumstances, or when we have the normal weather conditions, this area will have elephants the better part of the day. Look at the tusks of that huge elephant there. She got very huge tusks, quite long, and that's very beautiful. And Lauren, elephants eat differently, of course, depending on the size, sometimes depending whether they're males or females or their physical condition. But we've seen elephants doing anything from 150 kilograms to about 300 kilograms of food in a day. They eat so much because we all know that the digestive system of elephants is not very efficient. And they only put to good use about 40% of what they eat. So anything 150 kilograms to 300, it's normal for a fully grown elephant. Again, depending on what type of food they are having and age, the condition of an elephant, because when they are sickly, they don't eat as much. If it's a big, huge elephant, it has to eat as much. If it's pregnant, the same. If maybe she could be lactating, she also needs to eat more to support feeding her calf. You can see the pelvic of that one. It looks a little old. It looks small to me, but doesn't look to be very good. Look at the hind quarters there. She doesn't look as majestic as elephants are. And she doesn't also look good. She's a female who doesn't look to be very good. Well, she could be old and maybe did not grow as much. So all of them will be heading to the marsh, and for the better part of the day, they are going to remain in there, eat anything soft they will get, and at the same time, drink. What will happen later in the day, in the afternoon, all of them are going to leave the marsh area because we have known elephants, if they spend so much time in the water, they get a disease that we call foot rot, and these elephants have known with time they'll need to come out, go to drier areas, higher grounds, and they're going to rub their feet in the same soil as they walk through to spend the night, most likely in the thicket or higher ground. Young baby there. 3 calves, in fact. Safari Kitty, any plant that an elephant will not eat, I have no idea. Elephants ideally will eat practically everything they get. What I would want to think maybe is something we call the stinging nettle, because in any area it just outgrows the vegetation where it is. But I think elephants ideally will practically eat everything. I've been trying to think. There's one particular tree here that we call the East African greenheart that is always very bitter, very spicy, that we use to make toothbrushes. And when I was young, I've always thought because it's so bitter, it's very spicy, the leaves, elephants will not eat it. But many times I've seen the big bulls using their trunks, bring the branches of the same tree down and feeding on it. What a peaceful sighting there with all these huge beasts feeding. And I'm sure the calves are learning how to feed as they grow older. Not here in the background, you can hear some frogs just chirping and making some choruses. And that's a very good sign that rains have come and all the species here are happy. Well, I'll move on looking for some more animals.
Out a little bit. We are looking at some tracks at the moment, and it's raining quite heavily. I'm going to just jump out and show you what it is that I'm seeing. So this is the area that Thandi actually walked up. But if we have a look here at these tracks are going in the opposite direction. They're going down. And interestingly, at first I thought these are leopard tracks. And then this one here, if we have a look at this one here, you can see that the toes are quite long. And that looks a little bit like a hyena. But in fact, and this is really nice because I'm telling you about how the weather and the substrate and the rain, as you can see, affecting. Because that looks like a hyena shape. But hopefully you'll be able to see all the way here. I'm trying to look for one that has a distinctive 3 lobes. This one, it's so difficult to see because of the rain, but it most definitely is a leopard track. This one kind of has it. So 1, 2, 3 lobes right there. So that's telling me for sure it is a leopard track. If it weren't a leopard track and it was in fact a hyena track because of the curve. See, a hyena kind of looks like it's got bananas for toes. So it has a curve in like that, but it only has 2 lobes on the palm, where here we can clearly see there's 3 lobes, and that to me indicates 100% this is a cat. In fact, this is a female. Perhaps Thandi used this route to go down towards our camp, perhaps in that direction, not very close at all, but perhaps she used this route to go down. But she certainly used this route to come up as well. Interesting though, I think, because these tracks look very, very fresh. And they're going in the opposite direction. Because the soil is now hard from the rain, it's not dusty, it's more difficult to actually track. So here I can very faintly see her tracks that are going up towards where she left. And these tracks that I first showed you were actually looking better. I wonder if it's not another leopard. Even still, they end about here. You can see it's nice and sandy here, which is why they made nice tracks. Up here, can't see any tracks. Again, the soil is hard. I'm looking for sandy bits. And not. So this leopard has crossed into this block here. Sometimes you'll actually be able to see where they turn, which is really, really, really special. So this is the last track I see for her, somewhere here. But then again, we know that she was also hunting. And if she was hunting, that means that she would go up and down. And we would have tracks going up and down, up and down. That is definitely tracks for a female and definitely tracks for a leopard. As you can see, it is very wet. It's truly starting to come down at the moment.
Your radio has got a lot of moya.
You're all saying that you love the sound of the rain. The rain is spectacular, isn't it? Is it better than the sound of my game drive radio? No, could it be? Okay, I'm going to keep on going and just keep an eye on these tracks just in case we're lucky with another leopard.
Yeah, welcome back to the river, and the zebra are still having their morning or breakfast meeting, whether to go across now or later. The one thing is for sure, they will be crossing sometime, in the morning. I have seen them, stay for up to, 6 hours and then cross eventually. I've seen them, stop there for about 10 minutes and just go. So it is still very unpredictable. The only thing is we have to do is to stay here at the river, and hopefully it happens soon. just to explain to you in case is, this is part of the whole migration, and the migration does happen from the Serengeti to the Masai Mara every year, taking around 3 months to be in Kenya. This is a movement of animals amounting to around 3 million, about 1.5 million wildebeest, 500 zebra, 200,000 Thompson's gazelle, and Topis eland, amounting to around 300,000. So it's a whole big movement, and we do see a lot of zebra and wildebeest. Mostly when this is happening, when they arrive here, they have to cross from one side of the river to the other. Olivia, you asked about the lions feeding on something. I didn't get the last bit. Please, could you reframe the last bit? Do they use the migration as an opportunity to feed? Of course, yes, they do. This is the time of plenty and of easy pickings, so they have to take full advantage. And I promise you, we'll be showing you some lions. They are bloated, and hyenas and leopards. They are so full. Look even at the vultures. They are soaring. Those ones, sometimes it's even hard for them to fly, so they wait for a thermal and use it to fly somewhere else. And while at that height, they use their amazing eyesight to locate their next meal. I've seen vultures so full this time of the year that they can't take off. They have to have a big runway, so they usually run before taking off. So Olivia, you're very right. The full advantage of this time, and it is all predators, from the crocodile, the lion, the leopard, the hyena, the cheetah, all of them. Jackals take full advantage of this time, and they just fatten up to their maximum. They eat as much as they can. Look at this crocodile. He's swimming very slowly. He's been eating so well. It's unfortunate we can't see his head, but he's a massive one. He's one of the big ones located at this stretch of the river. We have very many. Okay, looks like there might be a movement. Yes, there is two saying, do we go down there? And then there is a few saying, no, I'm going off to the right. Remember, there is about 3 different crossing points, but they can't cross anywhere when they decide to. Yeah, remember, hashtag CGTN Wild, hashtag Wild Earth. Question, comments are very, very welcome. You can also, live stream us on YouTube. This is coming live from the beautiful Masai Mara. Yes, it's a lovely morning here. Well, I don't know what they're thinking there, but if I was a zebra, I think I would be thinking, I think it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous to go down there, so I would rather stay here. For a handful of them, they could stay back here because there would be enough grass and water and there's no need to go. But because there's so many, the pressure to have enough grass for everybody forces them to go to.
Welcome back to Ambion Pinda. At long last, we've managed to find some cheetah. There's 2 big male cheetah walking through the long grass in front of us here. We're gonna have to go off-road to keep up with them, so once again, please hold tight. Get them jogging along there. They're coming up to a wide open clearing here, and I'm hoping that when they get there, they stop and maybe rest for a bit. They've been walking really far as they patrol their territory. There they are up there. Yay, cheetah, at long last, after driving around for hours this morning. So we did go and look for that female cheetah. We found the carcass, no sign of her, though she seems to have moved out the area. But then these two big males came through. Let's see if they maybe go and smell that big tree over there. They might go and scent mark there. See the rain starting to also come down. Look at that tail, how he's waving it against the tree, spraying his urine. Hear the pitter-patter of raindrops coming down. I think we might have to go and head for some cover, everybody, seeing as the rain is coming down a little bit harder now. But there are two other vehicles with the cheetah, and so once the rain stops, we'll definitely come straight back to them, but we're going to have to run for cover, everybody.
Okay, welcome back, guys. Looks like there's a bit of kicking and biting there. I don't know for what reason. Maybe it's two stallions arguing about their mares. It is very typical for them to walk side by side and then all of a sudden turn or try to back. Knees or ankles, weak points that can disable, one. Zebras are one unique that is equipped with, 4 very sharp canines for fighting, very much like a horse teeth, but with 4 of them, very sharp. They're also used for defense during a hunt. If a lion gets one, they can bite it and it can let go. I have seen that happen. Yes, and also, that's what they use to fight each other during mating rights and gathering enough females to have, because usually they would fight for females and they would gather about 6 to 10 of them, which they keep for a very short tenure. Sometimes maybe 10, sometimes 20, because there's always problems. When they're spooked, they might lose each other during a crossing. Like here, they will lose each other, and sometimes when there is a stampede, they'll lose each other. So males are always fighting to have new mares. Look at what they're doing right now. They're standing with their faces facing upwind. Navita, you ask if the adults help the young ones during crossing. Is that what I heard? If that's so, no. It's everybody for himself during crossing. But once they're inland, I have seen stallions and mares fight back, a hyena or a leopard or a cheetah, or when it's trying to kill the young one. On land, yes, they'll fight back. In the water, it is very difficult. I've never seen them protect. One very little one there, 2 of them actually, really cute. I'm hoping when they cross that they will go across peace. Yes, they're all standing facing towards the wind. They're actually downwind from the wind, so if anything is approaching them, they can smell it. Remember, they have very good eyesight, and this is what is called the buchels, buchels, or the common zebra. Over here we call it punda mulia. Yeah, donkey that cries. That's what it means in Swahili, punda mulia. Yeah, this is an animal that, in the earlier 1900s, one gentleman tried to domesticate it and distribute bread in one of our cities, but he couldn't manage because every time he was doing his rounds, it would kick and bite, and they later realized that it had a very weak back, and it also possessed its wild mentality, so it was never domesticated. But they do make very, very good pets, very loyal. I had one as a young boy. Yeah, looks like they're all facing away from the water, but it doesn't mean that they will leave. The reason they are here, they want to go across, and I'm hoping that very soon they're gonna go down. These usually happens every about 10-15 minutes. Already it's been around 20, so I'm hoping very soon or later they'll head back to the river. Remember, we've had A good number of them cross at different points, including toppies, which is a very, very, very rare sighting. Just to tell you what you're looking at over there, the forest just behind the zebra is where the river meanders around, and what you're looking way far away up there, that is the Olololo Syria escarpment. That is the western boundary of the Mara Game Reserve. You go up there and there's people, there's settlements, but below that, from the top down, is the Mara Game Reserve. The Olololo Syria escarpments, the Olololo runs from a long way, almost a place called Mulot, and heads all the way to the western corridor of the beautiful Serengeti National Park.
Here we are at the old hyena den, Gwen's old den. So this was used by Ribbon and by last year. And remember I told you that I saw June when I was following Subui, the leopard. When I was following her, I saw June run out of this area. So that's why I've just come through so that we can have a look and check it out. But so far, no one is around. Now you can see it's got a beautiful jack growing out of it, as well as a tamboti. Very, very nice. But like I said, no one is home just yet, and I also don't even know if anyone's living here. But it is a possibility, and I'm happy with that possibility. I am now going to direct you in the spirit of the changing seasons to this lovely sprouting bits of green. You see these tiny little bits that are popping out. How sweet is that? Now, it is next to a red bush willow, but this is not a red bush willow. It is so hard to tell, it's just emerging, but if you look at how juicy those little buds are, and the color of the stem from which it is coming out, it's a little reddish. But I think the best clue here is how juicy it looks. Almost fruit-like, you would say. Well, if you can tell me what this plant is that's starting to just come up, please do, using the hashtag WildEarth or hashtag CGTNWild. I'll try my hardest not to give it away like I did the last time we had a plant quiz. It's a little bit difficult to see because it's tangled up in the combretum, the red bush willow. But it is juicy, and sometimes you may say people in the bush like this plant. Cryptic clues there, guys, cryptic clues. Let me know what this is using the hashtag WildEarth or hashtag CGTNWild. Sorry about that, guys. I'm sure the grass was very, very interesting. So interesting that Tswalu lost it. Well, up here, we have a great go-away bird. It's just sitting at the top of that branch. Ah, and as always, they have to fly off as soon as I point it out. Otherwise, you know, it's not entertainment, is it? I'm just going to jump down and grab you a peek before I give it away. I was just about to say the name again. Let me just grab a piece so we can have a look quickly. Before we do our quiz answers. Oh, this is quite nice. I want to give you a piece that really shows it off. Actually, this will do. We put that there. All right, the question was, can you identify this plant? Ready stems and juicy buds, and a very important clue, there's tendrils. Can you see these curly things that are towards kind of everywhere on it? There's some curly stuff up there, some curly stuff down here. Indigo Girl, you say a jackalberry. It is not a jackalberry. It's one of the smaller things we see out here, something that smells quite urine-like, for lack of a better comparison. Linma, you say it's a young marula just sprouting up. It is not. It is not a young marula. They bear fruit-like, they are fruits, we just don't eat them. Let me get out a pointer friend first. Oh, Nicola, you say a common wild pear. That sounds very fancy, but it is not a common wild pear. Look at a few things. See these tendrils? These round things here. That's what this plant, which doesn't grow very tall, uses to hold on to other plants. So this would wrap around like that and hold on to other plants. Now, usually, this is all dried up now, but just green starting to happen. But these tendrils will be nice and green very soon, and they'll start to creep and crawl onto trees. These here will become really nice, juicy, bulbous leaves and fruit. Alan, you say it's a sandpaper raisin. It is not a sandpaper raisin. It's a difficult one. It's probably one that we haven't thought of in a long time because we haven't seen it for such a long time. But if I had to give that cryptic clue to you again, it's so juicy, it looks fruit-like, but we don't eat these fruits. And perhaps men in the bush. Oh, Bushveld grape, Shadulu fan. Well done. Bushveld or Bushman's grape. Well done, Shadulu fan. It's just starting to come out. We usually see them when it's full rainfall and it's really nice and wet out here. And you can see it's still got a while to go. These tendrils are dried up from last season. Still got a while to go, and you can see these juicy bits are really coming out. And you can also tell by the color of the stem, and even if I move the stem like this and you see the inside, it's not woody. Can you see that? It's quite green inside. It's not very woody. And that would put it in a category of basically a shrub. For it to be a tree, it would have to be woody. Now, that doesn't mean that the whole thing has to be, for it to be a shrub, it doesn't have, for it not to be a shrub, doesn't mean it has to have no wood at all. It can still have woody bits, but essentially, it cannot be used as wood, and it does not have the same support structure that to give rise to a really large, big tree. Well done, Shadulu fan. I must say I'm impressed. And that's budding. And I thought it looked really good. I'm so glad you got to see the tendrils as well. And at the end of the day, we learned something. And Shadulu fan, you got it right.
All right, guys, so we're back at the Meerkat Burrow. This one is by far, from what it looks like, their favorite one for the rock stars to use. We call it the far burrow. And we were just discussing earlier, so by the way, we haven't had any of them come out of the burrows yet, still sleeping, still cuddling a little bit. But we were just discussing earlier about how important it is for these little guys to have several burrow sites, for them to be able to duck into one at night, which is not necessarily the same one every night. And there's a number of different reasons why it's important for that. For them, they on average forage about 4.7 kilometers a day. So with that being the case, it could be in a straight line in one direction or out and back. So, they can use the same burrow twice or three times consecutively in a week, but also very important for them to be able to go in a straight line in one direction and be able to forage in that direction, and when they get to nighttime, have a safe place to duck in. It also helps to have several burrow stations to be able to, not have the parasite load get too high in one particular burrow station. So Cecilia had a very interesting question, guys. She asked, does this biodiversity change between wet and dry season? And to a certain extent, yes, Cecilia. The animals don't really change. There's no change in species that comes in and out, apart from the birds, I suppose, the migrants and so on, and then also the insects. So to answer your question, for summertime, the rainy period and so on, we definitely have a higher biodiversity here at Tswalu than during winter time, when it's dry and when most of the migrants move away, and also when it's cold. It's not necessarily a matter of water, but also temperature that drives some of the species to migrate to climates. But then again, also, temperature and water is almost in a straight line with one another. So when it gets cooler, the water goes down, and therefore the animals move if they are able to. The plant diversity also goes down a little bit. You get a lot of plants that go dormant at the moment, not a lot of grass cover everywhere, just a couple of stubs here and there, whereas during summertime, when the rains have come, we'll have plentiful grass growing right throughout here, and predominantly what we call sour grass, which is what these guys are. Not necessarily the most nutritional plant, but it gets the job done in the Kalahari, especially for things like the oryx and the springbok and so on. Your animals that primarily, that was a tongue twister, grazers. They do obviously also go over to browsing when it is necessary. However, if they can, they'll browse definitely, graze definitely. So yes, the biodiversity changes to a certain extent, but not completely. But yeah, guys, we're going to be with you as soon as these little guys wake up, and you must enjoy the rest of the sightings for now.
Good luck. Hopefully the meerkats will come out. And seasons always make a big difference on what we see out here while on safari. Now, I got a huge raptor out here, and I want to ask you a question. I would like you to tell me, which raptor do you think this is? It's a bird of prey. And just look at her carefully and tell me, who do you think this is? You can send your answers. You can tweet #CGTNWild or #WildEarth on what raptor we could be in at. It could be a bit of a challenge because I think it's a juvenile one, and if I'm not, I think it's a young one and maybe doesn't have all the colors you'd expect to see on her. But who do you think this is? Look at the claws and see how long they are. And the only clue I may want to give you, when you see them feeding, they'll go on dead trees and looking for any worms they might get, or chicks of other birds, or eggs of other smaller birds. And when you see them feeding, they tend to stay like 90 degrees. They're able to balance very well. And you can see their knees almost swinging like 360 degrees on their knees as they feed. I hope those 2-3 clues are important or are enough to give away the bird. A hawk eagle is not bad, but I tell you, as an eagle, you got some good points. Not actually a hawk eagle, but keep trying, keep trying. Which hawk do you think this is? Karen Marshall eagle, not quite. For an eagle, you still got a point, but not quite. Keep looking, and I've given away some important clues. When she feeds, she balances very well on trees, and she can stay like perpendicularly on trees and balance very well. She goes to dead trees or any trees that are hollow, and will feed on anything she would catch, chicks of birds, eggs of birds. Gina, Tony Eagle, getting close. Tony Eagle is what we had earlier. You remember where we saw the 2 sub-adult males that were feeding, 2 sub-adult males of lions that were feeding on the buffalo. We had a Tony Eagle on a tree, a marabou stalk on a tree, right-backed vulture. That was the Tony Eagle. And the Tony Eagle are more brownish in color. The only challenge here is this one is a juvenile. Jane Snake Eagle getting very, very close. So let me first give you a clue. Let's first, eagles is under, eagles, but is a type of a hawk. Let me see whether that will help. Is a type of a hawk, but they all have those similar characteristics. Greg, very well done. Excellent. 10 out of 10. African Harrier Hawk. Excellent. African Harrier Hawk is the correct answer. And it's a juvenile. And sometimes we also call her the gymnogene. Well done. Now, being young, that I think where the challenge came in. Otherwise, they have some bird. When you look on their breast, they have like black and white lines. And the orange is quite clear, going all the way to the eye when they're fully grown as adults. Of all the hawks, when you see them feeding, you just enjoy watching them. They fly, they land, and they'll feed at any angle. My guess is she could be looking for something to eat from a distance. But for now, she's just sunning herself. Beautiful light she got there. And you notice she blends in very well because she chooses such a dead tree. Haha. So, oops, sorry, Bungay there. So we'll just have to move on and let her enjoy the day and the sun. Have a good day. Keep sunning yourself. Moving on, looking for some other good stuff ahead.
Fascinating to see. Well, back at the river and what is what now? Yes, they're all milling around, all standing there. Nothing much has happened. They're still discussing, they're still thinking. It is very typical. It is part of the crossing behavior. They have to sometimes stand there and decide, when to go. Is that a topi? No, it's not. It's part of a termite mound. So it is not the time for them, but who knows when. It just takes one to start walking and they'll walk towards the water. Remember, this is part of the remaining few that got left here. We left them yesterday evening after the crossing we saw, and they might be crossing today, this morning. Over there also, do we have movement? Oh yes, we do have a few wildebeest, and most of them are lying down. Those two are walking. It means they might encourage or join them on the walk, either outside or outwards or towards the river. It is very typical for these animals to do this, but we love it when they gather up and crowd. Ken, am I able to cross the Mara River with my vehicle? Using the bridge, yes. Using the bridge, yes, you can cross. There is a time where one bridge was broken and it was the only access for the fuel truck to bring fuel in. This was late 90s, and a few camps were forced to drive across. There is only one section that you can do that. I don't know how good it is now. It was last used, but then we did use it, a few camps that were there. But I would encourage it. It is very dangerous. You might lose your vehicle if you get stuck. You might be washed downstream. You might get eaten. So we cannot cross using the vehicle. We use bridges. Although they are far and few, we use them. We don't encourage wading or driving across. It is a very dangerous river, full of rocks, sand, mud. It's not even on the ground, so it is not advisable to actually drive across. Looks like there's a little movement of the zebra. You see those three from the left. That's all you need to start triggering a movement. We have the rare spotted green Land Cruiser driving with a few Homo sapiens ready to enjoy this fantastic scene here, waiting for the crossing. Yes, they all stopped again. Nothing much is happening. It doesn't mean that they won't be going. Remember, this is life. This is coming from the Masai Mara, and this is the annual migration of wildebeest. And when they do this, they crisscross the river at different points. You're always very lucky to catch one. So catching one is really a bonus, and that's why I am stationed here, so that when it happens, I can be here to share it with you.
Oh, I really hope that we get that. Such a spectacular event, really, Mother Nature gives to us. So many events like that, but this is one that is truly special. Now, in the vein of den searching, I've decided let's check out our den that we know is active. See if anything is happening there, but really on the road I can see that there's impalas around. Generally would mean that the adults may not be around, but it's still a little bit north of the actual den, the den itself, so perhaps they will be there. Colafelo, you'd like to know how many antelope species we have in South Africa. I'm sorry guys, my rain roof's just come loose, so we're just gonna have to stay still for a moment. Multiple. In Africa, that is quite a question. So, let's start with the ones we have here. Steenbok, duiker, impala, waterbuck, kudu, nyala, bushbuck. Did I cover all that's here? Missing anything? Okay, let's move on. Eland, Oribi, Sunni, Sesame, red hartebeest, Tick, tick. So I've counted 18 already, right? Did I? Or did I count 13? Can't keep track. I hope that you counted. And I'm sure that I've missed some. Buck. I'm sure I've still missed some. There's so many antelope. Antelope are so diverse, and that's because they're a prey species, and also they're a primary consumer. So the energy that gets, or the plants that convert the sunlight and water into their energy and oxygen, those plants have a whole lot of nutrients and energy just waiting for other animals to come aboard and have a bit of it. And those animals are the primary consumers of those primary producers. I'm sure I've missed some. Let's have a look in the mammal book quickly. Although this is not a list type of book, but I'm sure we can figure out if we've missed any. Let's see. Buffalo are also antelopes, by the way. Ungulates. No, technically antelope. Oh, wildebeest. How could I forget a wildebeest? Black and blue, for that matter. And how did I forget? Oh, blesbok. Oh, gemsbok. Oh, reedbuck as well, and yes, reedbuck, red duiker as well, not just a grey duiker or the common duiker. Liechtenstein's hartebeest as well. Klipspringer. How could I forget a klipspringer? Okay. Oh, no, we did steenbok. Sunni. We missed the Sunni. How did I miss a sable? Sable as well. We did bushbuck, we did eland, Nyana. Sitatunga! The Sitatunga. Love that name. And we definitely don't get those here. Sable, rowan. Waterbuck, yeah. Oh, lichwe. The last one I have here is the puku. I think that's about it, guys. I may have missed out some subspecies in between, but that's a lot of antelope. And like I said, they're so diverse because they're the primary consumers of these primary producers, these amazing plants. Anyway, let me fix my rain roof.
Good morning and welcome to all our viewers to And Beyond Ngala. This morning we are busy driving in the Timbavati riverbed. Myself, I'm Yapi, and behind the camera we have Gerrit. Now, we are currently busy looking for any sign of anything. We had lion tracks early morning, and the lions crossed out of the reserve at the moment. But we're not sure. There might be signs of them if they took a huge loop, and they might have come back close towards our eastern side of the reserve. So, as things stand, the rain gives a little bit of a tricky situation in terms of finding animals. It will be trickier to see tracks in the sand, and if the tracks were from last night, then it would probably be completely obliterated by the rain. So, we were hoping. I am very happy to be out and about as well. It is always nice. Even though it's raining, it creates a completely different atmosphere in this area. Animals act differently. They are impacted by the rain. And some of them are actually quite active. Contrary to popular belief, some of the cats, they're really active because it's nice and cool. It's easy weather for them to move in. And they might even use it to their advantage for a hunt. So, at this moment, we're taking a slow drive. We're checking all the big trees in the area, and we're trying to see if there might be any tracks that's crossed over the sand. If it is fresh tracks, it means the top layer of the sand that's wet will be broken, and then we'll be able to see something moved here just now. But the area that we're driving in at the moment, you can see there's a lot of reeds near us in the riverbed, and these reeds are all more or less at the similar height, and that's because the elephants, during the dry season, they usually come to these parts of the riverbed and then they eat the reeds, and they crop it down to the point where they're almost at the same level. Now it's just started raining again a little bit. I can see lots of signs of elephants that's crossed about. We are hoping to get lucky with any signs of leopard this morning, maybe. I think there might be something there. We're just going to have a quick look. Aha. Oh, I would love to see some leopard this morning, even if it is a leopard with a young one. Now, I just want to have a quick look. It looks like we have some leopard tracks here. We do have some leopard tracks. It looks like it might be a female leopard. She's come from that bank and she's walked down across this side. And it looks like it's pretty fresh. It hasn't broken through to the dry part of the sand, but the sand over here is quite soft, so the rain has seeped in deeply. Now, they're heading up to the bank behind us, and I think what we'll do from here is we'll loop around and go see if we might find something. All right, that will be good stuff. So let's see, maybe this rain is a bit of a blessing this morning after all.
Well, we've got some big mammals here that I want to show you because we don't see them as frequently. And the mammals you're seeing here are some huge antelopes. In the Mara, they are very common, certain areas not. And these are the elands. And apparently I've been looking at the hawk that we just saw earlier, and I might maybe change my mind and apologize. And I think we have one of the viewers that said that could not be in the gymnogene that I thought it was, but the western banded snake eagle. You remember I was saying when these birds are juveniles or when they're young, sometimes they always also mix us a bit. I think one of the viewers said it was the western banded snake eagle, which I think that should have been the correct answer. I apologize for that, and not the gymnogene of the African hairy hawk. Now, look carefully there. There's one that is seated down there. And that's an eland. And if you look carefully, he is grayish, and normally the males, as they get older, they get dark and a bit grayish. And being ruminants, you can tell, he is just chewing cud in those thickets of the orange rift crotons. And also trying to hide, I would say, keeping away from the predators, because if you look at that break of himself and the bushes there, it gives a clear break from being spotted by the would-be predators. The one on the right, my guess is a female, a little brownish in color. And apparently they're both browsers and grazers. So they'll eat moderate twigs and leaves. It's always exciting to see some different. Maybe not as exciting as lions or cheetahs or leopards, but to see species of animals that we don't see every other day, I think is quite cool. They also tag along with migration of the wildebeest and the zebras, but not as big numbers as the beasts and the zebras. If scared, these are the antelopes I know that jump highest. And of all the antelopes you got in Africa, these are the largest. When all the wildebeest and the zebras will be, after the migration is over in this area, the predators will be left now bringing down the buffalo, like what we saw earlier, hippos or elands. Jay, good question. You'd like to know if the females also have horns like the males. Yes, both sexes have horns, both males and females, than the females in general. If you're lucky to see one come out, you'll also see the males have what you call dewlaps, some huge muscle hanging under their necks, and the males have much bigger dewlaps than females. But yes, correct, both males and females got the horns. It's an elephant there, feeding. Strange to see her alone, because I don't see any others there. And I'll be moving on to look for more animals.
Welcome back to And Beyond Pinder. Myself and Craig have headed back out after we got chased back to cover by the rain. It seems to have cleared up a little bit, and luckily those other vehicles stuck with the two male cheetah, and so we've now, well, at long last they've actually stopped. They've been walking very far, very quickly, like we saw earlier, patrolling their territory, scent marking as they went, and they've lain down now in this burnt patch. Look at how much they stand out in this kind of sea of burnt grass. Oh, there's a bird of prey that's just landed in a tree in front of me. I just want us to have a quick look at it, and then we can come back to the cheetah. It's a long-crested eagle, everybody, just over the front of the vehicle. See the zebra there on the right, busy staring? And there's the eagle, the long-crested eagle, perched on that little dead branch. And this area has recently had a small fire that's come through. The fire has died out, but with that burn, as sad as it seems, there will be lots of little creatures that'll suddenly be very exposed, and that's what this long-crested eagle is no doubt looking for. Little rodents, little birds, even things like snakes and lizards that don't have any more cover to hide in. Look at how the zebra are busy staring at it. Oh no, maybe not at the eagle. They're staring at something on the other side there. Again, quite a harsh landscape, but interesting to see the zebra in that landscape. We'll come back across to the cheetah now, still lying down there. Wow, look at how easy it is to spot them from a distance. That very pale color against the very dark background. Apparently, lots of you commenting on how light the cheetah look in color. I think it's, like we were saying, just the contrast of their lighter bodies against the dark burnt ground, but certainly the further cheetah away. You may remember from from 2 evenings ago, we spent the evening with the two male cheetah known as the south males. These are those same cheetah. They're quite a distance away from where we saw them last time, but we spoke last time about how pale that one male looks, the one that's further away from us, the one that has the chewed up ear. He's very light in color, just a genetic, just his genetics, just the way he is. Like we spoke about this morning with giraffe, and how genetics will affect how dark the coat of a giraffe is. It's the same with these cheetah. And look at that one male in the front there, how alert he is. He's busy looking at something. I wonder what he's seen. He's looking down into there. And looking at their bellies as they walked around, they didn't look like they were terribly hungry. They apparently, while we were sheltering from the rain, they apparently caused a mass stampede of zebras and wildebeest across our airstrip. But yeah, they weren't actually hunting them. I think it was just the fact that the zebra and the wildebeest were surprised by them, and they didn't want to stick around to find out if the cheetah were intent on hunting, and so they ran away very quickly. But the fact that apparently there was a small zebra foal in the herd too, an animal that these male cheetah are definitely big enough and strong enough to try and hunt. So it doesn't seem like food is what is on their mind. I think, like we said earlier, we saw how they were walking quickly and scent marking. That seems to be what they are up to this morning. They've got quite a big territory, and having such a big territory means that you've got to keep it well scent marked. There's a couple of questions about the burning of the grass and asking if it's good for animals, and ultimately yes it is. Although it does look very destructive and the ground does look very barren, and obviously fire is something that's very dangerous to animals, and yes, if there's a fire there are many animals that might not be able to escape, normally smaller things like mice, sometimes tortoises, snakes. Obviously many invertebrates are unable to get, so lots of lives of smaller animals will be lost. But in the greater scheme of things, most of the grasses in the savanna biome, they need fire to stimulate new growth and to maintain the landscape at its optimum kind of carrying capacity and its optimum health, if you will, in terms of the vegetation. And so even though for now it doesn't look so great, in a couple of weeks' time, after we get a bit more rain like we've had this morning, there's going to be new lush grass that's going to start growing through, that's going to be super nutritious for all different kinds of grazing animals, everything from little invertebrates up to elephants and white rhinos and buffalo and everything in between. And that will then, of course, obviously provides lots of food for herbivores, and that will then in turn feed the carnivores too. So although for now it doesn't look so great, it is ultimately very important for the savanna ecosystem that there is fire that does kind of burn off all the old dead, the technical term is moribund, and then allow for new grass to grow through. It also can make spotting predators like cheetah from a distance a bit easier. Scott, you're asking if that one male cheetah has a collar? Yes, he does, Scott. So I mentioned the other day that these are two new males that have been brought in from another reserve not far from here. And not far from here, to really diverse a population as possible. If you've heard, Scott, that's quite a threat to cheetah is lack of genetic diversity, and so in areas of genetic diversity, and so in areas with the one
So we are still driving around, and my rain roof is not being very forgiving, but it's okay. It's okay, everyone. I was on Rebecca's Road and I'm heading north on it, but I'm going to get to the junction with that magnificent tree, my favorite tree, very, very soon, and I wanted to chat to you about it just a little bit. But I don't want to give you too much information before we get to the tree, you see. But what I will tell you about is the fact that everything that you see as we're looking at this landscape, every single thing is connected. This marula is sending information and nutrition to that marula, and to this marula and that marula, and they are prioritizing themselves over, say, the combretums, and all of this is constantly happening. Constantly happening. Remember I told you about the battle that's happening underground between trees and grasses? There's a different type of connectivity that also happens. Not just one that is of the battle type, but one of care and sharing, which is quite... JC, you would like to know if I'm in tree shala mode today? Definitely. Rainy days, leopard with a scrub hair in her mouth. I can definitely sink into tree shala mode. We're almost at the tree, guys. Almost there. It's just that I can't drive very fast. Let's blame our rain roof. At least it's raining too badly anymore. So we're speaking about this connectivity and how plants share nutrition or nutrients. They will sometimes use this connectivity that they have for malice. And sometimes creatures will use this type of to seek out root systems, to find a way to infiltrate the root systems of trees. We call this magnificent network the mycelia network. Just going to go slow here. And it is a result of fungi that grow underground. So every fungus that you see, might be very familiar with. That's just the fruiting body. Beneath it, they have root-like things called hyphae. And those spread out, kind of looking like cotton. If you imagine each strand of cotton, very fine. And we call that the mycelia, or the mycelia. And when it connects other plants together, we call it the mycelia network. Here is my lovely favorite tree. Now, the reason that I came to this tree is because this Balanites, or torchwood, must be quite old. I have no idea how old it is, but it must be quite old, and it's also quite large. And the way that the mycelia network works is that you get hub trees. I can hear elephants shouting close by. You get hub trees or mother trees, and these are trees that are particularly well plugged in to this mycelia network that's underground, which is going for kilometers, not depth-wise, but area-wise. And it's connecting this Balanites to any other Balanites close by, as well to all of these combretums and guari bushes. All of that, they're all connected by the mycelia. And I call this a mother tree or a hub tree because it would have, compared to the other trees that are close by that are substantially smaller, it would have the greatest number of mycorrhizal fungus. So you'll get different varieties of mycorrhizae, and the large big trees like this will have the biggest variety. And why would the mycorrhizae want to have a partnership, a symbiotic relationship with these trees? Mycorrhizae struggle to get carbon, and they need carbon, but they are very good at getting phosphorus and nitrogen, something that trees struggle to get. So in exchange for carbon in the form of sugars from the tree, the mycorrhizae gives the tree phosphorus and nitrogen. So they have this connectivity going on. Now, trees that are plugged in to the central mycelial network, or the CMN, those trees have a higher survival rate. Also, trees will prefer to give nutrients to their kin, which is amazing because it means to some extent, although they don't have a brain or a nervous system, to some extent they know their kin, which is amazing. They'll prefer to give nutrients to their kin. As well as these trees, if say you are a Tamboti, for example, and you really, really want only your kin to survive, they will disrupt the flow of nutrients to other plants except their own. Also, if a tree is dying, that tree will send a burst of all the carbon it can to the nearby trees so that before it dies, it can give one last present almost to the trees around it before it kind of waves goodbye. Isn't it amazing? I think it is.
And we're still looking for that leopard, but Our search has now taken us back to the other bank, the southern bank of the Timavati, and along the way we didn't quite find a leopard, but we found this leopard tortoise. You can see it's very, very carefully moving into thick grass. It's quite a small one, a very, very young one, and it's blending in perfectly. It was an amazing spot from Gert. And the other thing, this is also a creature that this time of the year we don't see that often. So seeing this one walking around, the soil is quite wet. There's at least a puddle here or there from the rain. And we usually see them emerge. It looks like he might be moving, or him or her. I'm not sure about the sex. It does have amazingly beautiful colors. It's blended in perfectly. You can see it. The larger this tortoise will get, the lighter it will get. It's very dark still in between the blocks on its shell. And it's probably going to get lighter as it grows and the shell expands. And it's amazing how well these little guys can hide. You can see it's slowly moving. It is also a bit obstructed by the tall grasses in that area. And you wonder where these tortoises hide when it's very, very dry. Horse lover, why is it called a leopard tortoise? That is a good question. I am not entirely sure exactly why it's called a leopard tortoise, but I know it does have to do with the coloration on its shell, and that it is similar to the colors on a leopard's coat. But exactly if that is the reason why, I'm not sure. I'm going to have to find out and get back to you. And you can see now our tortoise has disappeared completely. I think it might actually move in there and we probably won't see him again. So I think we're going to leave him and continue our search for the leopard.
So guys, still no action around the burrow. The wind is picking up, it is staying cold, so we've actually thought of starting to dig an opening in that. Not really warming up yet. However, we did hear from one of the other oaks that our Makala group of meerkats has woken up. Oh, Warren, that is a very good question. Well, too hot and too cold. The question was, how hot and or cold can the Kalahari get? And so summertime we average around 40 degrees Celsius days, with the warmest to around, I want to say 48, sometimes even going over 50 degrees Celsius. I know in an area called Springbok, which is a little bit further west than Tswalu, we had 57 degrees Celsius at the end of last year's summer. So boiling hot during summertime, which, as you can imagine, this sack starts cooking. Nothing wants to stand on it. That's when you find everything hiding in the shade or in burrows for that matter. And then during winter time, the coldest temperatures that we had there was -8 degrees Celsius. So then you get dams freezing over and all of that. So very, very cold. And because of that, the organisms that operate within this particular environment has to be very well adapted to, those different temperature fluctuations. So getting a thick coat of hair during winter time and then shaking that off, having a shorter coat during summer. But then also, like with your Gemsbok or Oryx, they have that carotid system in their nose, which they use to regulate their brain's temperature, allowing their body to go sky high, you know, as far as temperatures of 20 degrees Celsius, which under normal circumstances would just crash every organ inside, especially the brain. However, having that carotid reed system, which is like a spider web of veins in the nose, with him breathing in and out, that airflow through the nostrils cools down the blood just sufficiently. It can get pumped into the brain, and the Gemsbok can continue operating as if normal. Also, they adapt their habits between summer and winter.
Okay, welcome back to the Mara. And looks like to cross zebras are still, most of them have started heading out of the river outwards. It doesn't mean that it is the end of the crossing. Sometimes they walk up to 500 meters, stop and think twice, and sometimes I think they think, you know, and say, why do we have to go back? Our aim was to cross. We should cross. Looks like our crocodile left. Okay, well, they're heading out. Yes, and so sometimes they come back after heading out, you know, quite far out. The heads are pointed outwards, far away into the plains. Doesn't mean it's the end of the world. At the crossing, this is a typical behavior that I have gotten used to. Hope you are doing the same. Is it Kef night? Do they cross at night? No, they don't. No, but I didn't get your name, but they don't cross at night. That is the predator of these waters. Yeah, the Nile crocodile, and this is one huge one. Look at. Sorry, that name is really difficult for me. Comes or it's just the name. Okay, that's how quickly they can appear and disappear. And with these waters, they can be anywhere. So there's no swimming. Yeah, the wildebeest and zebra risk a lot when they jump into this water. I must consider them very, very brave, because nobody in his clean mind would come and jump in these waters. Look at that guy, how eating really well. You can tell from the back leg towards the head, there's no like angle there. So he's been eating very, very, very well. Remember, this is a time of the year where they gorge themselves. They eat as much as they can, and whenever they can find it, they are always, feeding, because once the migration is gone, they will survive on small fishes and small animals that come to drink. But if they don't find anything, they are able to go for a long time without eating, which they are adapted to doing that. What is that zebra doing? Is it scratching its nose? Do you see it? Off center? I think so. I think it's scratching its nose or its face on a termite mound or something, on its forehead. Yeah, now it's a forehead. Yeah, usually with most animals, and each develops when they find an appropriate object or obstacle to scratch themselves. It could be a tree stump, a rock, a termite mound, ground. Yeah, it could be anything. I have seen trees and rocks that over the years, because of the animals scratching on them, they have become very smooth, and you still find the animals trying to scratch there, and every time they realize it's very smooth, they move on. And some animals know actually, some of their designated scratching points within their area, especially like elephants, buffalo, those, non-migratory animals that stick to certain areas know, and you will find them heading somewhere and just wallowing And then after that, they go and scratch themselves on this scratching, object. This is the Bachel's zebra we are looking at, one of the plain grazers of the East African plains. It's a migrant. It migrates from, the Serengeti to here. We do have locals. At the moment, it looks like they are leaving the river, but I am here, I am waiting, and I'm hoping, to either share a crossing or an experience at the river.
With these, and that one that's closest to us, the one wearing the collar, look at how he's just stood up and he's looking off into the bush quite attentively. Look at how his ears are pricked forward, and even his brother, who's head quite quickly as well. So I wonder what they've seen or heard moving around in the thicket there. There was also a little gust of wind that blew these cheetah, or new sounds that they could earlier. And it's a common topic of conversation is how alert these cheetah have to be. So I wonder if they'd maybe just get the smell of something potentially dangerous.
All right, guys, so sorry for just jumping away. We had a little bit of technical issues. However, we were talking about the different temperature fluctuations during summer and winter and how animals adapt to those different, temperatures. And we were talking about the oryx having that carotid reed system, or rita mirabilis, where they have that spider web inside their nostrils, a spider web of veins inside their nostrils, so that when they breathe, the blood cools down and it gets pumped back into the brain. And so, sorry if you have heard this, I'm just repeating. We don't know when we were cut off. So that the blood cooled down and gets pumped into the brain, and the animal can continue as if normal, allowing its body temperature to go up without the animal being negatively harmed. Also, they definitely change their feeding habits. During winter time, you find the animals, most animals around here, feeding mostly during the day, and then during summertime you'll have them going at nighttime, with a gemsbok or an oryx almost concentrating 70% of its feeding time during the night. Also, you'll find that things like steenbok and so on, the smaller antelope, the ones that can fit down, them hiding from either the heat during the day or the cold during the winter, in things like aardvark burrows. Also, warthog burrows and those types of things. Even leopards or so will go into those burrows to hide from either one of the two temperature fluctuations. So, yeah, to come back to the question, very hot during summer and very cold during winter, which is why the Kalahari is so special, because you have all of these adaptations for both plants and animals to be. So, pretty cool. But yeah, still no action on the meerkat front. However, it is Sunday, so I suppose they can lie in a little while longer. Maybe had a long night last night. You know, in South Africa, the alcohol is legal again, so they might have had a long evening. But yeah, as soon as we have action from them, guys, we're going to come straight back here and we'll let you know. So yeah, as soon as they wake up, we'll let you know, and then we'll get them on screen.
I got some small chicks here, if you look carefully, which seems to be very busy feeding. And these chicks belong to a particular bird that's called a lapwing. And this is the spur-winged lapwing. And she got two chicks. There's that one there, and we are trying to locate the other one. And what I'm thinking, the water could be pushing some small little organisms outside, and that's what they're catching and feeding on. That's how far the water goes. That's the other chick there. And if we show you the mother, she's very different from them. This reminds me of the western banded snake eagle that we had seen, that I had mixed for the gymnogen. See how they run very quickly, and any insect they would see there feed on. But when they're very young, they would be feeding on small plants, planktons that would be floating on the surface of the water. And shortly you'll be seeing the mother. See where she is, perched up on that small little mound. And correct, it's very cute to see these chickies here. And what she's doing, she's facing the other way, ideally looking for would-be enemies. Big birds, raptors, you know, that would come and catch any of these chicks here, or even herself. That's exactly what she's doing. She just flew to the other side, maybe getting closer to one of the chicks. She has to keep an eye on them, on how they feed, and maybe control them on the limits they can. But being water birds, they'll always remain near water. Now, of all the many lapwings that I know of here, these ones are very territorial, and they will always protect their ground and protect their chicks from would-be enemies. Well, enjoy your meal, chicks, and we'll maybe see you later.
And as we're still up on the bank looking for this leopard, we've come across an amazing sight. The Wahlberg's eagle. And to my knowledge, it's the first one we've seen of the season on Ngala. Both myself and one of the other vehicles have seen it this morning. I think perched up high on that dead tree, busy calling. Now, these birds are extremely territorial, and it might be that he is calling to his mate. And it's interesting to see it come back right to this part of the riverbed. Lots of tall dead trees here. I know there used to be nests here that some Wahlberg's eagles were nesting in. And I wonder if it is one that's nested in this area previously and just returned to the same area. And we were actually earlier today, myself and Gert was busy talking about Wahlberg's eagle and wondering when. And I know that some of the other people I've spoken to have said that they've seen some of them outside of the reserve. This is the first one we've seen here on the reserve as far as I know. You can see it's got its feathers puffed up, its neck tucked in. I think it's trying to insulate itself because of the cooler morning. And it almost looks like the wind's giving him a bit of trouble up there with his perch. Melody, I'm glad to hear this is a new bird for your list. And there's also a new bird for our seasonal bird list. This part of the season is usually one of my favorite parts. When you carefully start to notice when the birds return from wherever they come from. They come from further up in Africa, or whether they come from Europe or other countries. And it's just an interesting thing to do, is to note them down in the dates that they return. it's not unusual to see it this time of the year, but it's interesting that it came with the first real rains we've had this season.
So a bird that probably most of you have on your list are Egyptian geese, of which we have two sitting here at Ndlovu Dam, trying to stay out of the most of the wind. It's very cold and blustery and even a little bit drizzly this morning, which is nice for the environment, but not so nice for the animals. I think are getting very cold. Hi, I'm Mike. Behind the camera is Seb, and you've joined us here at Ecotraining's Pridelands Conservancy. We're out a bit later this morning because it was drizzling earlier. But now we're just sitting at the dam trying to see what might come around. We've driven a bit of the reserve to see what's happening, and I tell you what, the animals are taking shelter. And the rain, which comes in waves, is not comfortable. So most animals are taking shelter. We haven't seen tracks or signs of the lioness we had last night. But we're loving these two here, just watching them and waiting to see if anything else turns up at the waterhole. Very, very early this morning, before we were out, there was some buffalo here. Zaina, rainfall varies, but in the low-veld region of South Africa where we are now, we should get around about 400 to 600 millimeters of rain per year. 600 being a very good amount, 400 more or less the average. And that's what makes us have the vegetation that we have. So let's hope for a good rain year this year. We have experienced a drought the earlier part of the last few years. And now it seems to be a fairly wet year last year, and then hopefully this is a good start to our, and it's quite early, it's only just the beginning of spring, I suppose you'd call it, and we've already got this nice cold weather and lots of clouds. So hopefully Seb's showing you this dramatic, windy, dark, cloudy sky, as you can see. So hopefully that's going to bring us the beginnings of that 450 millimeters of rain that we need. So the waterhole is very low, and hopefully it's going to hold off just long enough to survive until the next rains.
These two cheetah have relaxed a bit again, it seems. Look at how that male closer to us, with his back facing towards us. Look at how he's lying flat on his side with that neck crooked up at an angle. Oh, he's going to roll over. So neat in the way that he did that. And it almost looked like he rolled over a little bit slower than cheetah would normally do that little motion. Often when they roll over like that, it's quite a quick little flip. And I wonder if he's maybe trying his best to not get himself covered in all the soot and all the ash that's lying on the ground there. It's going to be interesting to see when they stand up and start to move again a little bit later today, if their coats are any darker, or how much ash they've got and how much charcoal they've got in their in their coats from lying in this burnt patch. And look at how they're lying both facing in the same direction. And this little spot that they've chosen, kind of in the middle of a dried up waterhole, in the middle of that burnt section, nice and open all around them. A perfect spot for them to rest in the sense that all about themselves. We mentioned earlier they'll be wanting to make sure that they can spot any larger predators approaching them. But also we said that it's been at least 2 days since they ate last, and although they weren't that keen on hunting a little bit earlier, we said that they passed up the opportunity to hunt some zebra, or a zebra foal, and some wildebeest. It's possible that a little bit later today they might start to hunt again as their bodies digest the little remains in their bellies. And they've walked a long way, at least from the last place that we last saw them. So they might be slowly working up an appetite. It's incredible. We often talk about how far these male cheetah will walk, and especially these two, because of the size of the area that they now kind of traverse over, they have to move massive distances to keep their territory scent marked. And the other day we actually measured on Google Maps the distance that they'd covered in a little over kind of 36 hours, assuming that they walked in a straight line the whole way. They walked about 37 kilometers in 1.5 days. But of course, that's just in a straight line, and these cheetah, as we've discovered now this morning while following them, although they will have a point in mind where they're going to walk to, they very seldom walk in a perfectly straight line. They'll zigzag here, zigzag there. As they mark their territory, they'll be looking for prominent trees on which to go and urinate against, or big termite mounds to climb up on and then potentially defecate on as well as part of their scent marking. So at the bare minimum, 37 kilometers in just 1.5 days. It's really, really impressive. Look at how that male on the right now is starting to nod off. Gypsy, you're asking where Pinda got its name from. Gypsy, Pinda, or I think more correctly pronounced Pinda, is the isiZulu word for return. And it was named Pinda, or Pinda Izilwane, which means the return of the animals. And that comes from the past, or the history of this land. A lot of it was once farmland. It was used for a number of different kinds of farming, cattle, sisal, pineapples as well. And the land was returned to the wild and returned to the animals, so to speak. And that's where our name came from. And of those animals, cheetah were one of the species that had been wiped out in this area because of hunting. And that was one of the first, it was the first large predator that was brought back into this area. Leopards and hyenas existed here already because they were able to escape the onslaught of humans, being able to live quite close to humans undetected are leopards and hyenas. But predators like lions and cheetah had been wiped out in the area. And so cheetah were the first large predator that were reintroduced to this region, with the purpose or the intention rather of trying to get a cheetah population established here, so that when lions were eventually brought back, the cheetah had the upper hand. They would already know the layout of the land. They would have already established their home ranges and territories, and just give them a head start on the much bigger and more dangerous lions. Yeah, very interesting question, Gypsy. And something we're very proud of is the success of our cheetah conservation that we've had here at and Beyond Pinda since we started. I'm just looking at that male at the back. Look at how his head is drooping. Myself and Craig are going to sit here for just a little bit longer. Just with this one male looking so alert, and with it being nice and cool, there's a chance that these cheetah might still continue with their territorial patrol. So we're going to give them a few more minutes in the hope that they do that.
Still with the geese, and it looks like they've started to maybe feed a little bit in the water. So I think I need to correct myself. I think a while back I mentioned that they might be eating invertebrates, but geese don't actually eat invertebrates. They eat mostly vegetation. Ducks eat vertebrates and other small creatures, but geese eat grass. Shinzi, you were asking what separates the geese and the ducks. Well, there you go. I just literally mentioned it right now. Mostly their diet. The size as well comes into it. Ducks are generally smaller than geese, but mostly their diet. Geese are grazers. They eat vegetation. You'll often find geese walking along on sports fields and things, eating the grass. And ducks are generally feeding on aquatic invertebrates, so insects that they find in and around the water is mostly what ducks feed on. So that's the main difference right there. There's probably other physiological differences, but I'm not particularly aware of them. So look at that. Oh my goodness. That goose is making a mockery out of me. It's busy eating a frog. How dare it do that right in front of me? Classic. Look at that. Okay, so there you go. They do sometimes eat vertebrates. I mean, they haven't been reading their bird books, but I should know better than to say what animals do or don't eat, because invariably they're going to do the complete opposite right on the camera classic. So look what it's doing. It's busy washing off the mud off of that little, what looks like a platana, which is a small frog. And they're going to eat it. I'm assuming they're going to eat it. I don't know if it's just playing with it. No, it's definitely going to eat it. They're halfway down. That's literally ridiculous. Immediately and read up what they eat, because there it goes. Delicious, right? What a meal. Hey, breakfast. Done. Oh, are Egyptian geese actually ducks? That's a good question. You know, I've actually heard someone say that before, and I never really at the time did much research, but I'll have to research into it now. Perhaps Egyptian geese are closer related to ducks than actual geese. I wonder why on earth they're called geese then. I'm just going to do some research as soon as I can to figure that out. But there you go. Hey, so Egyptian geese do sometimes eat vertebrates, like frogs. So what it's doing now is using its bill. They've got a very sensitive bill, and they're busy disturbing the mud, I suppose. And then as a frog gets disturbed, they catch it. Seb and I watched 2 geese at Leopard Dam yesterday that were also diving down just with their little bums in the air and their heads underwater, also ruffling in the mud. And I assumed they were eating little bits of algae in the water, but maybe they were looking for frogs. That's interesting. I wonder... Nicholas, I think it was Nicholas, I didn't hear quite clearly. We do have the big 5 at Pride Lands. We saw a lion yesterday and buffaloes. They were interacting together, which is always amazing. As you know, we have a lot of elephants. We see them at this particular dam all the time, most afternoons. We often have them mud bathing. And yeah, leopards all the time. And of course, we're open to the Greater Kruger National Park. So of course, there's always the opportunity to maybe spot a rhino in these areas as well. We are open to the Kruger, but certainly leopards are something that we see tracks and signs of often, but they're a little bit more shy in these areas. But we've seen Pixie Pan and her cubs in this vicinity of this waterhole not long ago. Seb, when did you see them last? It's like last week, right?
Sorry?
Yeah, when did you see Pixie Pan?
Where?
Yeah, when?
Where?
Like a few days ago, I think.
Like 10 days ago.
Yeah, like just over a week ago, they saw the Pixie Pan female and both of her cubs. Actually, had found her tracks on foot earlier that day, and then Seb and Taylor managed to find them, which is awesome. So, what I'm going to do is do a bit of research on geese in the meantime and find out what is up with them.
Thanks, Mike. Welcome back to June. They often find them on termite mounds like this, feeding on either on termites or sitting where these little vents are, because where the vents are, there's often warm air coming out, especially in the early morning. You will see it. Early morning in winters, you'll see birds sitting on the top of termite mounds, because termite mounds are, for the most part, very good at regulating their temperature. They're about 32 degrees. So when it's 5 to 10 degrees in the morning and there's a vent allowing heat out, you'll find birds enjoying it like a heater, like many of us in the winter months. But to this guy, it's possibly even broken open some of that new growth of the termite mound. You can see it's a little bit more crumbly. You see below at the bottom, it looks a little bit older. And at the top there, you can see that it's new growth. The sediment or the soil is a little bit darker in color. And that's where the termites are active. Everyone's saying how much you love termite. Hornbills, of course, they are such characteristic birds, aren't they? Since the Lion King made Zazu the most famous bird ever, everybody comes to Africa goes, is that from the Lion King? And while it is a similar species, the Lion King's from the north, from Kenya. This is the southern yellow-billed, but very, very similar bird. He's looking for some food. You can see the white on the other side as where other birds have been sitting. There's been some defecation happening there. It's possible he's even been sitting here for some time. Yummy. Now, obviously, they use their beak as we would fingers. So they can't just eat things, they have to flick them into their mouths. And you probably saw that before. It's like throwing a peanut in the air and catching it. They get very good at doing that. Beaks or bills, if you want to call them, are basically the fingers and hands that birds have. And the shape and design of those beaks or bills is designed to assist them in feeding. And they get very specialized behaviors, very specialized beaks. And the hornbill's beak enables it to do many, many different things. But one of the things it's very useful in is in its breeding. Sorry about the noise you might hear. There's just a bit of wind tapping one of our little flaps. We've got a rain roof on because of the rain. And they will cement their wife or their girlfriend for the time being into a cavity in the tree and leaving a little gap in there that just the hornbill's bill can pass through. And she's locked inside while he brings her some food.
So, all right, guys, still no action over here. We've been discussing reasons why it hasn't. I mean, you can see even the anteating chats are coming to have a look at why these guys are not out of their burrow yet and not up and going. Beautiful little female anteating chat there. So Chris had a very interesting question, and he asked whether meerkats would stay in the whole day. Chris, not necessarily. We were actually talking just now. I asked Nikki, the meerkat habituator, what would be the reason for the oaks staying inside for so long. And you know, as we've seen with previous times that we had the Rockstar group, that beta female is getting really, really heavily pregnant. So it could be that it's something like that. Maybe she's given birth and they take a little while longer to just, take care of the little ones and clean everything up and so on. And the others would help with that. So to answer your question, no, not necessarily. If it is like a stupidly cold day, snow and all of that, maybe, yes. But then, they must have had a very, very good previous day of foraging, not needing to go out and eat again. However, I'd say on average, no, they wouldn't spend the whole day in the burrow. Their drive would get them out and get them going. Even if it is later, like this morning, they would still go out a little bit later and start foraging. With them being so small, they need to eat quite constantly. It's not like a lion that can kill something and... So it's not like lions that can make a kill and stay with a kill for 3 days and only eat, like, even after they finish the kill, wait another day before they start really getting hungry and so on. So they constantly need to feed. But guys, seeing as that we're not really seeing any meerkats at the moment, Headquarters has got a nice clip for you so that you can go and learn a little bit more about meerkats while looking at them, actually.
The rolling plains of the Kalahari are something to behold. With the morning sun comes the rising of the meerkats of Tswalu. Ascending from their underground burrows, these critters cannot afford to be half asleep, with predatory threats present from both the ground and sky. Led by an alpha female, the first thing on a gang's agenda is to venture out and forage for food. The surrounding is a varietal buffet. However, some of the insects on offer are more heavily armed than others. For meerkats, breakfast is the most important meal of the day.
Myself and Craig are still sitting with these two cheetah. And look at how that one male is set up and is looking quite alert, a little bit like the meerkats that you just saw, sitting up on their on their back legs. That very typical upright posture of a cheetah on the alert, showing that very big chest and that relatively small head in relation to its body size. And it's still this one male, the male with the collar, who's been the most kind of alert and not quite jittery, but every time there's a strong gust of wind that blows, it seems to be him that looks around. And he's been looking off to his right now for quite some time. I don't know what he's seen. We can't quite see down there. There's some bushes obscuring our view. But whatever it is obviously not requiring his imminent attention, as he's now looking back over his shoulder as well. Interesting to see how the one male's looking to the right and one to the left, just to maintain their general awareness about themselves in kind of a 360-degree view. But seeing as these two cheetah don't seem like they're going to get up and move again, myself and Craig are going to leave them, and we're going to go see what else we can find for you this morning.
So there's another bird that's just coming towards the waterhole, although the wind is not so easy for this particular bird. It's a batalier. It's just flying in the distance there. It's very difficult to spot. But with the strong wind and without a tail, or a very short tail, it's really struggling to make its way towards this waterhole. We hoped that it might come down and land and drink, because it's not a pleasant situation for it to be flying, but it's flown off now. So we were just talking, Seb and I did a bit of research on these geese, right? These so-called geese, which are only supposed to eat vegetation. And in the whole bird book, there's a whole write-up about what it eats, and everything is vegetation. And then there's one line right at the end which says, may accidentally eat invertebrates like insects. And this one accidentally ate a frog. I've realized that now. It was an accident. It was an accidental frog ingestion, but once it started, it just had to keep going. And we both talked about it now having indigestion. That's why it's not feeding anymore. It's just standing there swaying in the wind. It's just dealing with a bit of indigestion. It's like a vegetarian eating meat by accident. You're not going to feel great about it. Silly thing. But yeah, also did a bit of research on duck and goose, physiologies and things. And yes, Egypts are actually fairly closely related to shell ducks. And so there's lots of records of them interbreeding with shell ducks and fulvous ducks and all sorts of other types of ducks. So they're definitely closer related to ducks than to geese. So thanks for everyone who pointed that out. It's confused. I mean, an Egyptian goose is a confused animal, but was once worshipped by the ancient Egyptians as a sacred, I don't know if, oh, look at that one. Maybe there's a nest there. I wonder. They do sometimes nest on the ground. So I was reading up some more nesting stuff, and they said, about 2/3 of the time they nest on the ground, and 1/3 of the time they might nest up on top of, so that's quite interesting. I wonder if it's building a nest there. It's not a great place for a goose to have a nest, to be honest. With the amount of elephants and buffaloes that come down, its nest will get trampled quite often. Well, see what happens. Still waiting for any other animals to come down to the waterhole and see what else happens today.
And while Mike's waiting for the other animals to come down to the watering hole, we are near somewhat of a small watering hole, and we've just come across these two young male giraffes. And they seem to be feeding on what looks like a russet bush willow. Now it's interesting, we haven't been seeing too many giraffes over the last few days. Before the rain came, it was very, very windy, and I think it might be because they were moving in areas around the riverbeds. And where we are near the Timbavati with a very, very dense section. It's almost like this marsh-like section, this. Have a look at that giraffe's lips. Look how carefully he's stripping the lead off. Kelly, do giraffes make any sound? Now, giraffes are known to be quite quiet creatures. I have heard them make some sounds personally. I've heard them alarming at lions before, which is a very, very odd sound. It sounds like a very soft sneezing noise. And you actually wouldn't really know that it is a call unless somebody points it out. And then I've heard them sneeze a couple of times. But other than that, you don't really hear giraffes unless you hear their hooves on the ground as they're moving and when they're feeding. I know that there are some theories that they do communicate using infrasound, but at this point I know it's still being studied. They do have excellent hearing though, and for them a lot of their communication over long distances is also very visual. It's an animal with excellent eyesight because it is so tall, and those white markings behind the ears, will be able to spot other giraffes. Have a look at that one. Grab the mouthful of leaves and now it's chewing it. So let's have a look and see when he swallows it. Cleaning his nostrils. Probably picked up some pollen or dust from the leaves and the flowers of that tree. Look at him strip off just the tips of the branches. And you'll notice they eat quite a lot and then chew, then swallow. Carefully maneuvers its long tongue in between, trying to grab the parts that's harder to reach. I think we'll sit here with these two giraffes for a little while longer.
There was a really beautiful, quite massive group of birds of prey using a thermal. Finally, 9:30 in the morning, and the ground has finally heated up enough for that hot air to rise, and a whole host of vultures and bateleurs to rise up. But now they have either gone too high or too far, and we can't really see them. But that was really, really awesome. There must have been about maybe 30 birds, all really large birds that would need a thermal to pick themselves up. And that's because if you think about a white-backed vulture with 5.5, maybe 6 kgs, a bateleur, you're looking about 2 kgs, 2.5 kgs. They're heavy birds to get up into the air, and they use these thermals in order to do it. And I'm quite disappointed that they've moved off so quickly. But also the wind has, besides the warm air that rises and helps create lift for them, the wind has been pulling them very, very, very fast across the sky. So using the thermals to move vertically, and the wind has been pushing them horizontally. And now they are gone. It was quite crazy. It felt like you could see patterns. There were no patterns. It's just the movement of the birds. If we have a look at that marula there, you can see that the wind has definitely picked up. It is swaying, and so are the other trees around it. Well, I'm going to go find some shelter in the Mulwati.
Service. Welcome back to And Beyond Pinda. We have left those two cheetah, and we are now
I'm going to be going down.
enjoying the company of a mother giraffe and her youngster. See that little one there in front of us? Look at those fluffy horns on top of its head. I'll be able to see that little fork-tailed drongo flying around in front of it. Oh, and some little oxpeckers sitting on the giraffe's neck as well. Look how curious it is though, staring at us. Like I was saying, its mother is not far away, just off to the left here. Busy browsing on some fresh shoots coming out of some buffalo thorns. Look at all that greenery around her there. Obviously this new growth attracting quite a few browsing animals. We've seen a couple of inyala in this area, and there seems like there's quite a couple of giraffe scattered around in this little clearing. We've seen at least 3. But there we go, we were talking earlier about the difference between male and female giraffes in terms of their horns. Have a look at this female. Well, of course, now as I start talking about it, she puts her head down. But have a look when she lifts her head. At the tops of her horns, you might be able to see, there we go, the tufts of hair on the tops of her horns, busy chewing. We certainly seem to have had some pretty good luck with giraffe today. And from here, myself and Craig are going to continue driving along, heading back towards the area where that female cheetah was yesterday, to see if we can maybe find some fresh tracks of her.
Hello everyone and welcome back. I have left the river but not very far. Look what I found. One of my favorites. Hope the same for you. This is the African elephant. One of the animal in charge of making sure that we don't have overgrown or overgrowing trees and shrubs. What is happening here is they're eating a lot, young shrubs. As you can tell, they're not eating grass. They're going, slowly picking up small trees. They're actually very important, and they play a very big part in making sure that, young trees that are unwanted are kept in check. Look at that little guy. He's staying on the shady side of the mother because the sun is getting too hot. But mom is not too concerned. She's well experienced, and I'm sure she knows what she's doing. If it was too hot, she would take the little guy, to where the shade. Look at what the mom is doing with the leg. Look at that. Is he tired? Yes, they make sure that, there's some shrubs that can become a nuisance and can, overgrow all over the plains. So they make sure, they eat them, and it is very important. And the matriarch herself, she knows where to be at different times of the year because she was taught that by her previous mother. Elephants are led by a matriarch, the most experienced female, full of knowledge and knows where to be at any particular time. Where that young one is seems to be very, she seemed to be very safe from any predator because there's a distance between Amber Thank you for your question and thank you for watching. You ask, how fast can an elephant run? Well, it can run much faster than we do, believe me. And it also has endurance. And because you think it's very big, it cannot turn. An elephant can turn at very sharp angles. It can run at top speed of about 50 to 55 kilometers per hour. That is very fast. And to give you an idea of why they're too fast, they have 4 legs and we have 2. Each one of their steps is almost 4 to 6 of our steps. So when you decide to be chased by an elephant, make sure that you have somewhere to jump into, because none of the tree is big enough for an elephant to bring down, or you have to go into a hole. These are animals you don't want it chasing you, but I'm not saying that's how we can judge how fast it runs. Yes, it can run at almost 55 kilometers. Look at our tusk. It looks like it was broken. It's been broken actually. That is from either trying to dig soils on the ground, and she misjudged the strength of the tusk plus the ground and broke it, or either debarking a tree or even defending herself. But either of the 3 could be one of them. She's moving towards us. There is something harming in my vehicle, and I have seen in a few days it's making elephants not come too close to my vehicle, so she's turning away. I was hoping she's gonna come towards me. Yes, looks like she's very full. Look at that. That is what carries those 250 kilograms of grass every day. That's how much they eat every day. This is one that this is one animal that converts land second to man, believe me. Yeah, and in areas where they're confined, they can convert land really fast. By that, I mean they can destroy vegetation, from grass to...
We've managed to find some elephants, and I'm so glad about that, because I feel like my day is not complete until I see some elephants, and they have the right idea. They're in the drainage, which means they can protect themselves from the wind, just because the wind can be a little bit irritating. There's a little one just come up in front of us. Hi, Gianna. How are you? You have a very important question. You'd like to know how long it takes an elephant to use its trunk properly. Obviously, it depends on that individual's development, but when they're about a year old, they are not too bad with it. And if you look at this individual is about 3 years old. And you can see it's very, very good with its trunk. But under a year old, they can still be quite funny with the use of their trunk. And by 2, they're very good. And by 3, they're just as good as the adult. Look at this one go. Look at that. Can swing its trunk around a piece of grass. Round, round, round. Select a bit and pull. And again. It's very good. Occasionally you will see a little youngster who's maybe a year old, maybe even a little smaller, and they look like they've been cultured their whole lives and that they weren't just born 6 months ago, because they use their trunk so well. And then you might see others who are about 2 years old who are still trying to helicopter their trunk. That's when they swing it round and round and round. but generally by a year old, they've got some of it down. And before that, it's quite funny to watch them. Can you see that elephant down in the drainage there? That's a nice perspective because we often don't get to see them from so low. Hello, young boy. I love seeing the different angles. Look at that. I love elephants. I think they're it's so hard to pick favorites, but they are firmly in the running. Absolutely so. Well, I'm going to spend a little bit more time with them. Maybe they'll come up. Maybe they'll come say hi.
Elephants are my favorite animals. And any day to see elephants is a great day. Well, we got some hippos now out of the water. And I'm looking at the large animals like the elephants Trishalla will have hippos being number 3 in terms of size. And you can see those hippos out. Of course, number 2 are the white rhinos. And you can see those hippos are already out of the water getting a bit of sunshine. Very quietly and patiently, just hoping the wildebeest and the zebras I saw from a distance are going to cross this river at one point. So at one point, or sometimes you see the hippos there just laying on the beach by the riverbank to sun themselves up. But in this particular case, they are standing up. And I'm not sure whether these hippos are enjoying the current like I am here. And as you all say, this current looks very strong. Now, this river comes from some forest that we call the Mau forest, and is a forest very close to my village. And every time I'm in touch with my villagers and I hear there's some rains there, I'll always know that the current or the water, the levels will go high and the current will be quite strong. And every time I'm here, when I listen to these rapids, I always enjoy the sounds. A very important water source for the Masai Mara Serengeti ecosystem. The hippos and the crocs cannot do much, without this water or without this river. Now, many predators will always go for hippos, and I'm talking of lions. Occasionally, we have seen leopards going for baby hippos. But for me, the biggest challenge to hippos are hyenas, and you're going to learn more about the same.
With a reputation for reaping the hard-earned rewards of other predators, hyenas are rarely acknowledged for their hunting. Unfortunately for this young hippo, hyenas are indeed practiced predators. Separated from the Mara River by a substantial stretch of dry land, these hyenas showed off their strategic skills, surrounding and taunting the hippo, hoping to push it out of the water, weakening it. The wealth of food on offer comes with its disadvantages. The hyenas were weighed down from a meal the night before, slower and slightly less enthusiastic than normal. In a moment of sheer courage, the youngster bolted for a deeper channel, tipping favor. In an unexpected turn, this could only be viewed as a happy ending. The hippo, on its way back to its pod with a story to tell. And the hyenas having worked off some of their previous meal.
Life can be brutal, and that's what I've been trying to say to one of the little Ellies that have walked through, or just come through. That little Ellie had a pimple on its trunk, and we know life can be brutal in that way. You may get pimples before you're meant to, but at the end of the day, it's a happy ending, and it will all clear up. That little one has moved off. It's a bit of a straggler, that one. That's its mum that you're looking at. And the little one, it'll come through. There we go. There we go. That one came from behind the herd, out of nowhere, on the road, as if it had been gallivanting this way. There's a lovely Birchall starling in shot there too. How pretty is that? I think I've got a bit of a roadblock at the moment, so I might just reposition so we can get a better look of the a better look at them. There we go. And then if I can manage to escape, I'll get into the Mawati.
Sitting at Indlovu Dam, and I just happened to notice, I was taking a photo with my camera, and I happened to notice just how beautiful and colourful all the knobthorns are at the moment. So I think I talked about it a few weeks ago, how these knobthorns were going to be flowering very soon, and now you can see these are in full flower. In fact, most of the knobthorns around this region are covered in these yellow, long bunches of flowers that are bringing tons and tons of insect life to the camp at the moment. Now, obviously on a nice or on a very cold and windy day like today, they won't get too much insect activity. Still hear a few sunbirds visiting the flowers to get the nectar and any insects that might be there. So very, very interesting to see. It's very difficult to film because of all the branches moving about, but you can see those lovely yellow flowers right above the tent that actually is shared by myself and Taylor underneath this knobthorn tree over here. So there's the tent we use, and you can see the branch that's fallen in front, which I'm always terrified is going to blow off in a strong wind and crush. So let's hope it stays nice and safe. But what I love to sit underneath. I know, right? It's crazy, this wind. But what's really awesome is that you can sit underneath this tent, and because of this flowering knobthorn, there's a ton of life that comes to this tree. There's birds that follow the insects, there's insects that want the flowers, there's all the other animals. The giraffes will also be feeding on any of the low-hanging flowers because they have lots of energy in them. So the giraffes are also known as mammal pollinators of these visual. Most trees are wind and insect pollinated, but these trees are well known to also have a significant portion of pollination happening from giraffes too. This particular one has no flowers that are quite low enough for any giraffes, I think. But really look at those flowers, they're so pretty. And the little stalks that they're on a deep purpley red color. So the contrast is really, really gorgeous when the sunlight hits them. I'm hoping the sunlight does come out a little bit later for this afternoon, and we'll do another short segment showing you just how nice the contrast is between all these different branches. It's really, really lovely. So I'm not sure if you're all aware of the difference between the acacias now. They've been changed a little bit, and we'll discuss that a little bit later. In the meantime, we're just going to enjoy seeing what birds might come to this tree.
Welcome back to Ambia and Pinda. Myself and Craig are heading towards the area where we last had tracks of that female cheetah. It's led us into an area where the soil is very sandy, and we found a tree that is quite common on these sandy soils here in our reserve. It's called a black monkey orange, and it's called that because of the fruit that it produces. Now here is one that is still whole, and see, for now it's kind of a greenish color, but if I turn it over this way, it's starting to go a bit lighter, a bit more yellow, and that's the color that it'll be when it's ripe. So for now, not ripe, and when it is ripe, it is edible. And if I were to crack this open, it's quite a hard fruit, almost like a gem squash. And inside here, I'm going to show you because I've got some broken open ones here. Inside this fruit is a big cavity, and hear how hard that shell is. And so inside there's a cavity. You might be able to see there's a couple of seeds inside there, and there's a lovely orange pulpy fruit that's inside, which is very tasty. There's not very much fruit. It's kind of just a small covering around all of the seeds. The fruit itself is mainly seed, with just those fleshy coverings. Tastes very nice, almost like a tutti fruity with a hint of mango, a hint of orange flavor to it. Also smells very nice. I don't know if these ones... Yeah, it's not quite ripe yet. But when it does get ripe, it smells wonderful. But yeah, a plant that we often see here in the sandy soils. And yeah, something's beaten us to these ones. Obviously a baboon has cracked these open and started to feed. And hopefully later on in the year we'll be able to show you some ripe ones and maybe even taste them. But I think myself and Craig are going to leave these here, and we're going to carry on down the road, go see if we can find some more tracks of that female cheetah.
And just look at that. Two of my favorite birds in the same dead tree. On the left-hand side, we have a African harrier hawk, or as some might know it as the gymnogene, and on the other side we have a martial eagle. You can see the harrier hawk got spooked by the martial eagle. Let's have a look and see if we might see. Unfortunately, can't see the martial eagle now, but when we were here, the martial eagle was actually perched in a different tree, and it got attacked by two battaliers. And as the one battalier swooped down on it, it chased it off, and then the other one came and joined. So it flew just to the other side of the riverbed, perched there, and then that gymnogene, or that African harrier hawk, joined it in that tree. I'm sure it was also about to take part in the action and maybe even try and attack it as well. It's amazing to see this interaction. It's definitely some competition between these large birds of prey, and I'm pretty sure it's also a little bit of general fear for that large predatory bird. So we do often see that when it's perched out in the open where it can easily be seen, that other predatory birds will often try and mob it or try and area. But it's amazing that you get to see all of these very interesting interactions along the riverbed here, with the large tree attracting a lot of the large predatory birds. And also, like that leopard we've been looking for all morning, that also moves in this area because of the big trees here. We still haven't had any luck with her. Last tracks we had, it went up the bank off to our left-hand side, but we haven't had anything further from that. So we're still having a look out, we're still scanning. We want to see if we might be able to find any fresh signs of her.
I still have one minor part of the elephant roadblock. It's just this one here. I just want her to cross the road, and then we can move on too. As she looks at us again, you'll see that there's quite a lot of white gunk in her eye. You can just see a speck there. She's quite far. Can you see that? That's a result of not having tear ducts in the way that we do. Elephants have a third island. The third island. They certainly do not have a third island. And it is called an initiating membrane. And it covers its eye and moisturizes its eye as it goes about, because eye is dry. Now, we don't have that because we have well-developed tear ducts. See, I'm so cold, guys, my mouth can't move properly. We have well-developed tear ducts that moisten our eyes. Now, they don't. So as dust and other things build up in their eye and they blink with that nictitating membrane, then it pulls it to the corner of the eye there. Now, our tear ducts and the whole kind of lacriminal system on the side of our eye by our nose, where our cheek meets our nose, as well as on our eyelid and underneath our eye. And it is really, really well developed. And that's an adaptation to being on land. There are many large animals, still land animals, that once shared a common ancestor with large sea mammals, tend to lack tear ducts because there was no need for them, because they were constantly in a moist environment. Same goes for hippos, for example. That's why you'll often see that elephants will be streaming tears. But in fact, while they can produce moisture and produce tears, they don't have a duct and system in the way that ours do for collection afterwards. And these tears are not one or that come from emotion. It is the basic function of tears, which is to clear the eye and also to provide oxygen to them. There are no blood vessels that carry oxygen to the cornea. If they were, then we'd see them as we look out. So instead, your eye diffuses oxygen via your tears in order to keep it alive. And that is the primary function of tears. Emotional tears is something that really has only been encountered with humans, and even that may have a different function. It may be that when you feel emotional or you feel sad, that your response in having tears might actually help clear your vision. In the same way as when you're shocked, your eyes go wide, and you think that's just an emotional response, that's just a facial expression. But in fact, it's not. Your eyes go wide, and that means that you can see better. Your pupils may dilate, your eyelids pull back, and that's the type of response, physiological response, or physical response that you will need in order to see whatever it is that's sneaking up on you a little better. There's quite a few examples of that for humans as well as animals. Just to think about the things that we think are so human and are just part of the way we are, and it's connected to our social intelligence and our emotions. But in fact, there is very likely a physical and biological explanation too.
Right. An upthorn. Okay. What? Oh, sorry. My audio is having a bit of a problem, but should be fine in a moment. So anyway, a moment ago, we were talking about a knobthorn. We were looking at the beautiful flowers. And then I talked about being an acacia. And then I thought I'd just point out that we don't have acacias in South Africa or in Southern Africa anymore. This here is a branch from something called, and as you can see, it's got small hooked thorns and these long white straight thorns. Now, generally speaking, the trees that we used to know as acacias are now split into two families: vachelias, which are usually the ones with the straight thorns, and the V on the straight thorns help you to know vachelia. So. And then the hooked knobthorn, which is now called a senegalia, has a little hooked thorn which looks a little bit like an S, right? So this is actually called an umbrella thorn. and it is a Vachellia, but it has hooked and straight thorns, so it's a bit of a difficult one. That's when we start looking at the flowers. Generally speaking, the ones that used to be called acacias, that have those long straight flowers like the knob thorn, are called Senegalias, and the ones that have circular yellow puffball flowers are called Vachellias. So it's very interesting. So remember, if you hear anyone calling a tree an acacia, it's a throwback. They're not called acacias anymore in southern Africa or in Africa. The only acacias that you find now are in Australia, which is quite strange, don't you think? To know that Australia has stolen our acacias. It's all to do with genetics. But look at these hooked thorns here. You were talking about animals shedding tears, and I can tell you we'd shed quite a few tears if you walked into this tree. Look how sharp those thorns are. They're incredibly sharp, and these are very, very important to protect this tree. So I plucked this off of a umbrella thorn that's just here next to our camp. These are very nutritious, and without these thorns, animals would absolutely destroy these trees. As it is, they get hammered by elephants anyway. They've got tough mouths, but small animals like impala and even giraffes would avoid the worst of these thorns in order so that they don't get completely destroyed. Because remember, the springtime now coming, there's lots of rain falling, and they need to capture as much sunlight as they can in these tiny little leaves in order to provide themselves with the energy to grow. If the leaves got stripped off all the time, this tree would not survive. So these are very, very important safety mechanisms on this Vachellia tortilis, or umbrella thorn tree. Remember, Vachellia, the straight thorns usually means Vachellia, and the hooked thorns Senegalia. That's the genus, but this one has both, so it's a bit of a tricky one. I was trying to throw a curveball in there. I don't know if you've ever seen umbrella thorn trees before. Ours don't grow very large here, but in other parts of Africa, like East Africa, they get that beautiful umbrella-shaped canopy, which is where they get their name from. I don't know if you've ever seen any before. Don't forget to send your questions in to us. We love to hear questions about the trees as well as the birds and the animals. They're all very interesting stuff. Send your questions through hashtag CGTNWild, as well as at FC or hashtag WildEarthOfficial.
The number of hippos out there has increased. And from the 3 or 4 we had, now we have about 7, more or less. But I want to show you the zebras that have kept us waiting here. And maybe very few wildebeest in them, but the majority of the animals we are waiting to cross the river are the zebras. And you can see the distance as the camera is panning, how far they are from the river. It's not very far. I'll put it about 200 meters, give or take. And those are the animals I'm talking about. They might remain there for the next half an hour or 1 hour, but you're going to stay here with them.
Welcome back to South Africa, and now it's my turn to show you a leopard. Here in Djuma, Thandi has come back from Torchwood, where she left this morning with her scrub hare prize, and she took it to her cub. Now she's come back onto Djuma. There you can just see her bottom now. It's a very good chance that she's looking for some more food. Going to come out again. Now this type of behavior, her moving like this, she's looking for camouflage animals such as scrub hares, duiker, steenbok. She's a very good hunter of those small animal species. And I believe she took her scrub hare to her cub, and the cub has eaten it, and now she's obviously hungry. Okay, so she's just going behind this bush. I'm just going to have to move up. Sorry about the pole, everybody. Oh, you still got it. That's good for now. About the pole, we do have a roof on for purposes of the rain. Isn't that wonderful? Leopard in the woodland of Djuma. Oh, all excited to have her again. Okay, we're going to move so that we can catch up with her. Well, she looks like she's going back towards the open there. She's going to go onto a termite mound. Let's just try and get a nice little gap here. I'm going to go onto this termite mound. Just over here. 1 second on the termite mound, and there we go. Oh, got her there. Beautiful scenes of this female leopard doing what leopards do best.
This female here has taken some of her food to go. Can you listen to her crunch? Oh, you dropped it, girl. It's stuck over her tusk. She was feeding right next to the vehicle, and then the other larger cow decided, no, she wants this combretum, so this one has got to move along. She's now sweeping the roads for us. Very thoughtful. What lovely sounds. I just love the sounds so much. Well, I think if you can see, there's an elephant in the back and an elephant here. So I'm going to have to just wait it out, and I'll probably be here until the end of show.
Welcome back, everybody. There she goes. She went on top of the termite mound to try and get a better view. And now through the thickets she walks again. This is classic leopard behavior. They're looking for movement. They get a bit of elevation so as to be able to spot a little ear flick or the movement of a small animal. And then they'll go down from the termite mound and go and try pursue. But it doesn't seem as if she saw anything. But she knows if she keeps moving, she will be lucky. And there she goes, disappearing once more into the thickets. And looks like she's going directly east again, back towards the boundary. You see, they don't look at the boundaries the same way we do. For them, it's just a pathway for them to cross. And there she's gone. Okay, well, we're going to need to reposition to try to disappears back over towards the east. Leopard in her habitat. Prime leopard habitat. This termite mounds, open areas, thickets, tall trees for hoisting, and the preferred animal species in abundance.
How awesome. We could have Thandi at the beginning of show and then again at the end of show. So hopefully that means that she'll stick around and we can spend some more time with her this afternoon. This is the last smaller one.
She crossed back here.
It looks like they're chomping on a variable bush willow. Look how cool she kind of looks with the branches all sticking up straight in front of her. Almost like she's being a little coy. She's not eating that the other cow was, so I feel this might have been a, well, I want what you're having. Oh, there we go, it's a nice crunch. Kylie, you'd like to know if these thorns would hurt an elephant? There are no thorns on these trees. And elephants seem to love buffalo thorns, which are very, very thorny and you will never touch a buffalo thorn again after you've mistakenly been hooked by one. And they don't hurt the elephant because they have such large teeth that grind and grind and grind, and they have thick skin, and that doesn't just mean their outer skin, but also mouths and their tongue, really strong parts of their body. So they will not get injured by thorns too much. But you will find that they will prefer to go after vegetation that will not hurt them. In fact, yesterday I saw an elephant its ear get caught on a thorn, and she just pulled and she freed herself. So I'm not sure if that left a hole, but very interesting to see.
Welcome back, everybody. Well, it seems as if she's kept on our side of the line, and she's found herself on top of another termite mound, looking into the thickets for the slightest of movement. It's a hard job being a mother. She's got to provide food for herself and for her growing boy, who's probably, I haven't seen him in ages, who's eating more and more each day. Seen of him of late are his tracks, and he's gotten very big, which means that if she brings him food, he's probably going to eat all of it. So now she needs to go and secure herself a larger meal that she can spend a few days feeding on. A duiker or a steenbok or even a medium-sized impala would do her very good. And these conditions, overcast conditions with a little bit of wind, are ideal hunting conditions for leopards because it's cooler. It's far less energy expended on a cool day like this, and the wind helps to mark their hunting ability. The Queen of Djuma, everybody. She's spending more and more time on the eastern sides here, moving into Torchwood. And her daughter, Tlalamba, who we had the other morning, has definitely taken up residence in the central parts of Djuma. It is very common practice for a female, when reaching independence from her mum, to carve out a piece of her mother's territory. That's exactly what Tlalamba's done. Okay, well there she's moving off. We're going to need to reposition shortly. She just walked in front of that car there. And we're going to just reverse back and try and get you another view of her. As she continues on. She can do this all day, everybody. She can do this all day long. But she's such a good hunter, she's probably going to be lucky at some point, but you never know. It could happen with us, it could happen later. Watch out for the branches there. Oh. Now she's gone into the thickets over there, and we're going to do our best to try and relocate, but it is getting rather dense.
Welcome back to Ambion Pinda. Have a look at this massive white rhino bull with a little oxpecker sitting on his front horn. And a second one. Now, we've been following this rhino for quite some time, and he seems to be on a mission, just like those two male cheetah were earlier, and how they were scent marking. This rhino bull has been doing much the same thing. He's been walking, stopping only briefly to feed. He's been sniffing the ground, sniffing other piles of rhino dung. And he's been spraying his urine as he goes. Let's see what he's doing there. Okay, and just smelling the ground. Got all those oxpeckers flying around on his shoulder. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to... Descendants, sorry. You were asking about the difference between an elephant's tusk and a rhino's horn. Well, descendants and elephants, they're both completely different things. So an elephant's tusk is a tooth. It's the elephant's modified in size of teeth, whereas a horn on a rhino is obviously not a tooth. The horn on a rhino's face is made mainly out of keratin, the same substance as what makes up our hair or our fingernails. And then obviously a tooth it's dentine and enamel. And so that's the main difference. Descendants. And we've spoken quite extensively about why we dehorn the rhinos here at Ambion Pinda, and we've spoken about how it doesn't hurt the rhinos because it's just like having your fingernails trimmed. And then we get asked why we don't do the same thing with elephants. And part of the reason is that because it would be like pulling teeth out, which can be quite a dangerous thing, and it will be very painful for the elephant. And fortunately for now, it's not a feasible thing to do. But see this rhino still on a mission, marching down with his nose close to the ground and heading off into the bush there. There's a small water hole there. I wonder if he's not maybe going to go smell around there. It'll be a place where during the day white rhinos will go and mud wallow and then drink later in the evening. And perhaps he's on the trail of a female or a rhino encroaching on his territory. So I think we're going to go around that side and go and see where he's gone to.
Welcome back, everybody. Well, we're trying to keep up with her, and she's just decided to walk behind our car. So apologies again for the poll. This is a live broadcast, and we can't always predict exactly what these cats are going to do. Sorry about that poll. I'm going to move quickly so that I can move it out of the way. Excuse me. There she goes. So this is classic sort of what you see female leopards doing, moving through the thickets. The prey that they're looking for are often large and they stand still. But she's poised, she's ready. You see that tail? Moving. She's very ready to dart to the right, to pounce on something that immediately darts out of the underbush, and she will catch it. Not always. Oh, there's an impala up ahead of her that hasn't seen her. And she hasn't actually looked at it properly. There, she saw it just running. The impala just ran away. She almost hadn't even seen it. And now she's looked at them going, oh, where are you going, impalas? But her body language is showing one of interest, but not of, let's hunt you, because, well, the impalas have run away. Oh, now she's going to decide. Now watch her body language as she figures out. They didn't, to me, show it like they indicated that they'd seen her. They just sort of moved off a bit. The wind very blustery. It makes hearing for impalas quite tricky, so they're very jumpy in the wind. And a little breeze, leaves flicker nearby, and it can cause them to jump. They did an alarm call, which means they hadn't spotted her. But even in this dense woodland with her great eyesight, impalas weren't that easy for her to see. I'm obviously at a different height and a different angle, so I managed to see them. She's not trying to figure out what to do about it. Hello, everybody. Tandy moving through the long grass. Let's just try and move one more time. Get her for the end. Who knows what we might see? She's doing what Thandi does best, everybody. Moving. Moving, moving, moving. Last minute. Let's see if we can still see her. I can still see her. He's not interested in those impala. And Paul has realised and learned today a little bit about off-road driving. Haven't you, sir? Yes, you have. Okay. So stop over here. Here she is over here at 11 o'clock. Goes behind the bush. She's just behind that bush. She's obviously stopped. A little bit more left. Yes, there we go. You'll see her tail. There's her tail. She's behind. Now she's moving. Some spots in the thickets. The impala herd still has not reacted to her. I only saw 2 individuals, and I think the one I saw looked like a youngish male. So good herd. It's unlikely she's going to try and deliberately hunt a big male impala. She'll definitely be looking for a youngster or a female. Female impala definitely fall victim to predators more this time of year due to the fact that they're quite heavily pregnant. There she disappears. Of course she does. Right at the end, into the thickets she goes in pursuit of some breakfast. We do hope you've all had a wonderful, wonderful morning. I think I can still see her. Just on the top left and top left. Thank you for joining us this morning, everyone. We hope you've had a wonderful show with us. I know I have. Good day and goodbye.
The program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to Masai Mara. Good afternoon, everyone, and we are live once again. We are at the river.